Welcome back, everybody. The SMITE World Championship Season 7 continues as we move into the second set of the day. Sanguine up against Obey Alliance. Aggro joined by Gormizer on the desk to bring you into this one. Gore, picks and bans coming shortly for this set, but I want to take a little bit more time to talk about this Sanguine roster and how you think that they're going to be able to translate their successes that they had early on in the year to now at the very end of the year trying to turn up at Worlds.
It's so crazy trying to do that, right? Because you look at their Phase 1, even their Phase 2 performance, which maybe wasn't as big as their Phase 1, but you're talking about a team that has dominated people. You know, first in Phase 1 being able to have that kind of performance, but then finding drafts that work for them. The joke was, if it's meta, that's the list. Like, all you need for Sanguine's picks and bans is what exactly is S tier. They're going to go through those first, then they're going to go A tier, and then if they have to, they'll go down to the B. They don't have these special pocket picks that we're typically seeing out of some of the other teams, and that made them kind of easy to pick and ban against, but never easy to play against. And that was the weird thing about it. The problem is that exact thing has been troublesome for him at playoffs so far this year. And I think it's because we always see these little metas emerge. We've already kind of seen it here at Worlds. Different picks already happening in that first set. I expect that if they come into this trying to play what was good at Phase 2 playoffs or what was good in Phase 2, they're going to get wiped. It's
going to be an adjustment here for Sanguine at the World Championship, and I think that they are well equipped to do so, especially when they've got such a strong duo lane between Rongu and Netrioid. We've got Netrioid actually standing by for an interview. Netrioid, I saw you guys up grinding ranked last night. I hope you're still you still got enough rest and you're locked in and ready to go. What have you learned from the two playoff events that you guys have played this year? Because I know that you haven't played up to your own expectations at those events. What did they teach you so that you can do better here at Worlds this time around?
Well, I think we have learned a lot. I would say primary is getting used to like new things and trying to think out of the box, because that was kind of a problem for us. But now we're really prepared. We're really hyped. I'm really anxious to play already. So yeah.
So both times that the playoffs have started, you guys, unfortunately, haven't really been able to make it past that first set. You've got a really good history against Obey. Do you think as long as you get a running start here, you win this set, that the rest of the Worlds run will be relatively easier for you?
Well, yeah, we have actually like a good win rate against Obey. So as long as they don't do something cheesy that maybe can, you know, lead us to nowhere, or say something like, okay, we are lost in the map because of this or that, we should be good.
Netrioid, I know that room there, the Sanguine house, is going to be filled with energy very, very soon. Can't wait to watch you guys play, man. Good luck.
Thank you.
That Netrioid squad of Sanguine, I mean, you heard him say it there, Gormizer. Yeah. He agreed with what you were saying, basically, that they were sticking too inside the box. Getting outside that box is going to be a little bit interesting if they could do that up against Obey Alliance, who has been known to live outside. They have never even seen the box. So, like, they don't know where it is at any point in time because they're willing to pick anything.
Yeah, it's locked in the attic somewhere. It's got dust on it. It's been there for years. I mean, they were, like they said, we kind of heralded in the raw pick. I would actually give Inbound credit alongside Jake, but really for that Ymir coming through, it was those two picking it up more often. I think the fact that they're willing to go out on a branch already, I think gives them a pretty big advantage here.
This Obey Alliance team, always an interesting watch. You know they're going to be trying something a little bit weird, and a big part of that is their support, Inbound, who's standing by for the interview. Bobby, thanks for joining us right before your big set. Now, I don't know if people always give you the credit you deserve. You are a world champion in your own right, an Xbox world champion. You've prepped for a lot of Worlds in the past, a lot of big events on the Xbox side of things. How has this one been different prepping for the PC Worlds this time around?
I really don't think it's that different. It's just like different players you're kind of practicing and preparing for. But for the most part, it's basically the same. You just practice as much as you can. You get meta you think is the best, and then you just think what the other team is going to play. It's basically the same thing.
Now, I feel bad because I have to bring up some not great numbers for you. The team so far is 0-10. Both times, every time actually, that you've played Sanguine, you guys haven't been able to get over that hurdle and actually find the win. What is the prep for today that's going to help make that difference? How do you expect to try and tackle this team?
I just think we had really good scrims heading up to this set, and I think we've finally found something that works for us, and I think we know what we need to do to beat Sanguine now.
Looking forward to it, Bobby. Hoping that you guys can put up a really good performance today. Always fun to watch this Obey Alliance team. Good luck, buddy.
Thank you.
That Bobby-led duo lane of him and Wowie, definitely a focal point in this matchup for me, Gormizer, because Netrioid and Rongyu have single-handedly won games for Sanguine.
This is such an interesting matchup because we haven't gotten to see Obey in an actual event this year. They've only gotten to play the regular season. They didn't qualify for either of the playoffs. So there's some question marks around, I think, how they're going to perform now that it's, win or go home. But Sanguine hasn't been performing. So, right, if you get the Sanguine that we're not used to seeing, maybe the one that shows up for playoffs, I guess, then you're going to end up in a position where Obey not only can win it, but they could continue forward and give Renegade some trouble. But how does Obey handle that pressure is the biggest question right now, because they haven't had to deal with it so far this year. This is the biggest game of the year for them. And a simple mistake, even something small, will just knock it all away.
That's a great point. Obey has not played at any playoff events yet this year, so this is certainly a jump from their highest stakes game before this. And it's when we're talking about Sanguine not performing well at playoffs this year, it's not to say that they aren't capable, because don't forget about their run last year at the Wild Cards, where they were able to make it as an SML team. It was SML back then, SMITE Challenger Circuit now. They made it all the way to the World Championships out of that very difficult bracket. So we know these guys can come up big in the clutch. They just haven't proven that yet here in Season 7 for this one. I think this set is going to be really, really interesting in picks and bans, just based on what we saw in the first set of the day. How similar have these scrim cultures been? Because Obey and Sanguine obviously haven't been scrimming each other, but they also have not been scrimming Renegades or Belt Slap, because they knew that that was going to be a potential matchup for them, which means that they could be doing something entirely different than what we saw.
Yeah, and the fact that you could pull out, theoretically, two completely different strategies from either squad is a little scary, I think, if you're looking at Sanguine, but impressive if you're looking at Obey. Obey is one of those squads that I think anything they pull out is going to be solid, but I'm going to go right back to Phase 2. I have the numbers for that, so I know the realm of home.
You have some numbers? No way.
If they get Cupid and they get Raw, hey, guess what? That's how Obey won. Every game that they were able to win, which I'm going to tell you, wasn't a lot of them. It was 17 of their 80 games overall in the year that they were able to close out. But a lot of the combinations that worked for them was a good pick for Wolfie in that Raw, and then a good pick for Wowie in something like the Cupid that really helped drive them home.
That was all of their Phase 2 wins, had both Cupid and Raw?
I don't know if all of them did.
Okay,
I'd have to go back and look at that one. But I know a lot of comfort they got out of it.
Fair enough, and that analysis ends up being relevant for Sanguine right away as they ban the Cupid first overall, keeping that out of Wowie's hands. It ends up being the Sobek and the Guan Yu for Sanguine after that. Yamoja and Hebo taken off the board so far by Obey, set their last ban. And this is very different than what we saw Renegades and Belt Slap ban away. A lot less healers taken off the board. Ra still open. Chang'e still open. Hell still open. And we know that man on your screen right there, Shinto, the absolute beast in the mid lane, has a very, very strong Hell.
And I love how the year's adapted. First off, Guan Yu going from kind of nobody cares about him to being very prominent. Phase 2 playoffs showed that. The wild cards, we got to see it even more. But that Hebo is what stands out to me most, because Shinto, I think 3/4 of the year, we didn't even think about Hebo. We looked at the mid lane for Sanguine, and then he had one game, or one set maybe, where he just demolished on this pick. And it became a must-ban all of a sudden. It's just, you can't let him have it. It became the Merlin of Phase 2 for him. And that, I think, is a good pickup from Obey. I think they've done a lot of their homework. And again, they're getting comfort picks for themselves.
Well, Ra Jingwei making sure that backline is locked in early for themselves. We know that Wolfie loves that Ra, so I love them sticking to it. But Shinto wastes no time. Persephone locked in instantly here by Sanguine.
And Shinto, not only on this pick, being the first one to showcase it, has to have maybe some big shoes to fill to make it look good, but he also has to stand up to his own words. He straight up said, I don't think it's showcased in that one video, but if you watch the full version, he, in the Obey interview, said that he didn't think they belonged in the SPL. And if this Persephone does not perform at a level of someone who thinks the team you're playing doesn't belong there, then that is going to be a breaking point for Sanguine.
Certainly a big deal for them to follow up on words like that from Shinto, but definitely coming with some confidence, and I don't think you can blame him. As Rongyu gets this Ymir, you highlighted Inbound being one of the progenitors of this pick earlier on in the year. Now Rongyu gets it. I love its matchup against Persephone because you can use that Ymir wall in order to block off that Grasp of Death. Now you don't have to worry about it. It's on your own team.
Even better, you can make a wall for the Grasp of Death. The exact opposite of it, right? Because I can't count how many times this year we've been watching. Everyone's kind of grouped up, maybe two next to each other, and that Grasping Death goes flying on by the other direction. It just doesn't connect the way you would want it to. So I actually think this could be a really good combo if we get to see that scenario, at least setting up more success for Shinto with the Persephone pick, the Rom pick as well. It is just trying to get these carries comfortable and keep them pushing forward. I think that this is going to be able to help drive that dual lane forward. But there is the other side that Inbound should know how to play against this.
He certainly should, and Athena is not the pick that I would think of against Ymir. Your dash takes a charge up, you can freeze it out. You've got a dash that gets blocked by Ymir wall. Feels like a difficult matchup for Athena.
I almost immediately went, oh, well, Ducky's the one that plays Athena on this team, because every time we've seen it from Obey, it's been solo lane. But there's a Wukong already.
Wukong jungle.
I like playing Wukong support even, but I'm going to tell you, it's probably not something that belongs at this level. So they could shuffle it. Like you said, Sino likes to take things like that into the jungle. Ducky then potentially taking that over into the duo lane. You get mitigations off of it. The cleave that she has on her autos, in case you missed that update, is actually really fun when you're playing Athena. You finally feel like you can do something in the lane outside of stare at the minions and hope that a good taunt opportunity shows up. But if they do decide to send that over into the dual lane, like you said, up against the Ymir, your dashes all of a sudden feel a little more dangerous. Your positioning really matters. Your taunts aren't as easy to get off.
Interesting setup here for Obey. They're hovering the Loki, the one god left in Gormizer. He needs it. He's praying for the Loki to get locked in here for Obey. Bring something a little bit different and can get around that Ymir wall with use of that ultimate. A little bit risky, I feel like, but Obey has the setup necessary right now in this composition. Athena alone is a great combination with Jingwei, and you love that setup for the Ra.
And I think when you have all of that available to you, you already have, like you just highlighted, great team fight from 3, maybe 4/5 of this team if Loki was locked in. You don't need a 5th team fight. You need another individual, and I think that's still what they go with, even if it's not the Loki.
Gord, did you just hear the AC kick on or something? It just got really... It got cold in the hi-rez production studios all of a sudden. I'm getting chills, and it's either the AC kicking on or Sino locked in Naja on the world stage. I mean, give me a break. This dude was the MVP Season 5 because of this pick. I love it. He hasn't gone back to it in a while, and I feel like if there's a time to pull out the Naja, it's now.
I will say, I think the last time we got to see it, we had like some very similar sentiments, and then it didn't quite hit that same mark, and we were like, okay, wait a minute. We didn't mean this Naja. We meant the other Naja. But I think this is still, like you said, something that you've pulled out. If you need someone who's on a world stage, Sino's been there before. You need someone to perform under pressure. Sino's been there before. An MVP performance or something close to it on a Naja would be stellar for Obey here. Again, keeping Sanguine shut down is the biggest thing, and I think if he can find some good picks onto the Persephone early or onto Rom early, that's going to open them up for a smooth opportunity to transition into hopefully a good late game.
I mean, you've got all the setup in the world here for Wolfie. It just takes one Athena taunt or one Naja sash or one Naja ult, and you've got a lined up of Searing Pain coming your way. But the one concern that I have here, Gore, is that normally you use this to one-tap the enemy mid laner. That doesn't really work that well against Persephone because even if you one-shot her, she can still do everything.
The stuff, yeah. She gets everything that she would want. In fact, I would almost argue it's worse because now you have a Persephone that has nothing to worry about. Her life is already gone. So it's awkward to try and aggress into that Persephone, and I think, again, that's going to be the conversation that Obey have to try and tackle. Yes, you can kill her, but you want to do it, ideally pre-level 5 is where you want to maybe get some of those, but that's where you want to be in the duo lane, right? There's so many places that you need to find this priority. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they chase it. We've also noticed, at least in Obey, that they've kind of been slow to roll. They're not necessarily the same junglers that we associate with those level 2, level 3 ganks that we've started to see so often. So there's a good chance I talk about it and we don't even get to see anybody from Sino or anyone on Obey get that aggressive over there until they have their ults online or they're feeling a little more comfortable.
Their 3v3 in mid looks incredibly strong. I think we're going to see a lot of play around that from Obey Alliance. For me, when I look down Sanguine's composition, we talked about him in the pregame show. Rongyu in particular has a chance to just win this game by himself for Sanguine. You could pick Ymir 10th against this Obey comp, and I'd go, oh my god, they forgot about Ymir. They picked 0 leaps here for Obey. Yeah, you've got the Somersault Cloud and Airstrike and all that kind of good stuff, but there is no way over this Ymir wall. without using an ultimate, I feel like Rongyu can really turn this game by himself.
And like you just said, right? Like, thanks for using your 90-second cooldown from my 10-second cooldown. This feels really good for me as a Ymir player. And I think it's great because I think that means Rongyu's going to pull a lot of attention onto himself. He's a lightning rod. And we've glanced over one player. I think we said everyone's name. We haven't talked too much about Panatom, but Yarkor is the one that I was looking at. He gets this Kakulin. I'm scared of that. I think that's a frightening thing to be running down me in lane or in a team fight. I think this is something that is going to be very prominent for Sanguine going on. And if you have a lightning rod in this Ymir that's causing so much trouble and distraction factor, then you get to run free to the backline as Kakulin and cause a lot of trouble for the Raw. And if you get rid of Wolfie, I think the rest of this comp falls apart. But once Wolfie gets on that Lotus Crown, has that protections and that heal, it becomes more difficult for anybody to get back there, let alone for the Warrior to try and go solo someone.
That is true, but Kakulin, I think, does have some of those tools, as you mentioned. The anti-heal on the human form 1, you've got the push whenever you transform, get Wolfie out of that heal and end up giving him a little bit more vulnerability. I think Sanguine does what Sanguine always does. They picked 5 gods that work well. They work well together. They're good at all stages of the game. They've got the Serket Ymir to carry through the early game, Rom Persephone there to carry it late. We'll see if it's enough to take down Sino's Naja on the world stage. An unbelievable setup here for game number 1 between Sanguine and Obey Alliance. Let's get it over to the casters. Dolson and Mifflin standing by.
Well, it is time. You shall obey versus Vamos Sanguine, game number 1. It's Dolson, Mifflin, of course, Doug working with us on the Spectator. Mifflin, I don't know if you call it bad blood just yet, but a little bit of extra energy, I think, coming into this one between Sanguine and Obey. We saw some of those pre-game interviews. Gormizer mentioned it on the desk. This Sanguine team not convinced in their opponents in Obey.
Call it a grudge match, Dave. Let's call a spade here. Sanguine was the team when they originally came into the SPL. A lot of people claimed, well, it's a huge question mark. Do they belong here? Should they be here? Now that the turns have tabled, Sanguine is allocating those accusations towards Obey, levying the accusations that you guys aren't strong enough as a unit to stand the same ground that we do. Obey, they got to defend their honor.
Well, and how much weight, then, do you think starts to shift over towards Inbound and Wowie in this duo lane? We've talked a good bit about how this lane might look. Even our pre-game emphasis was on Rongyu, was on Inbound. This Obey team has never, I won't say never, but hasn't always struggled in these early games. What do you imagine this duo lane starts to look like?
We want to see some early aggression from Inbound. Athena, in particular, is a god that has deceptively strong early game, especially as Gore highlighted with the recent buff to her auto attack chain.
Yeah, I agree, and there's some early action happening here over in the duo lane. Inbound taken down to just about half of his HP. So surviving this early game, you can do that if you're Inbound. You're going to be feeling good about things here, but still have that potential to find a little bit of aggression, Mifflin. This Athena support pick, definitely not one that we got all that used to seeing throughout the year. Maybe more so for Obey, the types of compositions they like to play set up for Wolfie on this Raw out of the mid lane. What are realistic expectations in your mind for this pick going up against this Sanguine draft?
This Raw pick, man, it's something that Obey was really working on back in Phase 1. This Naja Raw or even Athena Raw combo has seen a lot of success for this roster. They've been able to find a lot of combos, the Windfire Wheels into the Searing Pain, obviously one of the best setup tools that you could have Confound as well to burn off the beads. There's a lot of tools here that Obey are going to have to utilize, but they have the tools to win out on these fights. It's really keep your eyes on Sanguine's relic usage, because if anyone's beads go down, that's when they really open themselves up.
There's absolutely setup potential between both of the supports here. Early pressure, Myth, all been pushing against Obey underneath their Tier 1 tower, effectively since the onset of this lane. Luckily, Inbound and Wowie haven't fallen that far behind really as a result, but you wonder how that starts to set up for early jungle pressure here. Panatom, another guy on Sanguine that needs to have a big week here. In games where Sanguine has struggled, some of it sometimes tends to fall on Panatom. The Serket pick has become a lot more popular, usually in the tanky variety of builds. Do you think Panatom has the ability now to make some waves in the early game?
Absolutely. Panatom is so comfortable on this Serket pick. He's really the one that I want to give credit to bringing Serket back into the meta. That tanky playstyle absolutely works for him. He likes to be one of the first people into the engagement for his team. He's going to be jumping in, trying to find the ultimate, setting up for his squad. And there's so many good targets for it. Sino is going to be a huge target.
Whoa, Inbound taking low. Look at the wall from Rongyu. First blood on over to Sanguine. The writing has been on the wall since the onset of this lane, 3 minutes in. And now First Blood finally swings through. You saw Wowie, excuse me, and Inbound push back Myth all throughout the early laning phase. Sanguine find their time and they strike.
That's a big stumble for Obey Alliance. They had given up wave pressure to go to their own purple buff, so not only does Inbound fall for First Blood, but he doesn't get the wave to himself. That's a full level deficit between him and Rongyu. And Ymir, there's almost no better god to push a lead in that long lane. They are going to be popping off. Keep your eyes on Sanguine.
Absolutely. I can't imagine feeling less comfortable in a position in the early game. You're a Jingwei, you're an Athena, and you get Ymir walled behind you. There's not much that you can do about it there. The shell even used by Inbound as well. That's something you have to look out for. But look at this. Rongyu and Panatom have made their way on over to Duo once more. Oh, the wall again! Are you kidding me? Rongyu sets it up perfectly. Panatom knocks it down. Inbound, an afterthought here, and Sanguine, a second kill over in the Duo lane.
Well, we weren't sure where Sanguine were to look to put their pressure, but I think we've got enough data now. Duo lane is what Sanguine wants, and they've been taking it every single time. Inbound still level 4. Wowie doesn't have access to the ultimate either. They're both susceptible to ganks for the near future.
It was a taunt in from Inbound there, and of course Rongyu will hit the wall that time. This one, though, not as impactful as the first couple have been. And you know, it's been interesting, Myth, kind of looking at the development, the shift and change in the support god pool. We talked a good bit about Yamoja in the pick and ban phase. This Ymir as well, and you'll see in the instant replay exactly why we're starting to see this pick a little bit more. You've got to be kidding me with that wall. And Myth, that is a scary trend. If you see a Ymir in the early game, sometimes you can say, all right, you fall behind, but you can still do Ymir things as this game goes on. If Rongyu is going to be playing this way on this pick, Obey is going to have a very difficult time from 5 minutes on.
And remember what Aggro said on the desk. There's no way for Obey Alliance to deal with that wall outside of using an ultimate or popping Phantom or something along those lines. So Rongyu from ahead is going to be a huge detriment to Obey. And take a peek at the build that Rongyu's elected to go for. A little bit of extra tankiness instead of going for the CDR boots. Instead, he wants to be able to frontline easily. He knows that the early game is where he wants to play. I'm almost assuming that he might forego the Gauntlet of Thieves for something a little bit quicker, maybe a Sovereignty, maybe a Heart Ward early on, because right now Sanguine is setting the pace, and it's a fast one.
And I love that Rongyu is not doing anything all that fancy. He's just hanging out behind some walls over here on the duo lane side of the map, waiting for anyone from Obey just to step up a little bit too far. This time it's Wowie, no beads, almost no chance to dash away enough this time, but Netrioid will roll on in, no snipes down. Wowie has to use the airstrike away. Wolfie sent his ultimate flying in the mid lane as well. But life is going to be uncomfortable for a little while here in Mifflin. Wowie's just going to have to play defensive. I suppose if there's a hunter you want to be defensive on, Jingwei gives you a good chance.
It's not a playstyle that Wowie is unfamiliar with. It seems like Obey really want to rally around Sino. He hasn't rotated over the duo lane. Instead, he's been keeping the entirety of his focus around the center of the map. Obey might have just cut the ripcord. They cut their losses over here.
Inbound wants to go in, but it's the roll away from Netrioid. Now, you wonder where Rongyu is going to be able to start to put extra pressure on the map. Though, Myth, we're still very early in the game here. You've got Netrioid just a little bit of a lead. Still Wowie hanging in there as far as levels go. Maybe just a bit behind depending on the direction the waves crash. But it's these next few minutes, right, where maybe this Ymir can start to rotate, make plays elsewhere, where this game can really shift. Maybe over to the mid lane. You look at this Raw pick, somewhat immobile. There's plenty of opportunity for the Sanguine team to exert their pressure elsewhere.
But the Ymir matchup into Ra with the recent buff to Ra, having the slow immunity on the second ability, means that Rongyu is going to have a little bit more of a hard time locking him down, but that doesn't necessarily make for a bad matchup. You can still find the freeze. Ra has no way to deal with the wall, and with the assistance from Shinto on the Persephone, it's range damage. Bone Rush from all the way downtown, or even the ultimate, should be enough with just the Glacial Strike damage that Wolfie should feel under threat.
Slight invade from Sino, very shallow, just going to take away some of those Harpies. Don't know where Inbound is, Sanguine didn't, so they'll work their way away from that one. Not worth fighting over here. Haven't gotten much of a chance to look over at the solo lane matchup either. Yarkor and Ducky, even up to this point here in this lane. What a fun matchup, I think, to look at. Not only Ducky and Yarkor, but specifically the Sun Wukong versus the Kulkullen. Kulkullen, kind of a niche pick here, Myth. We've seen it a few times at the SPL level. Some guys have played it very, very well. What do you think of the lock-in here for Sanguine?
I like Kulkullen to fit into their draft, but as far as the 1v1 goes, you should favor the Sun Wukong. He's already starting to move in towards that Soul Leader, and sure, Kukullen's got a little bit of anti-heal on the first ability, but not enough to deal with that item completely. Ducky should be very safe in that lane, and I don't imagine we see any ganks go his way either. Sun Wukong, one of the safest solo laners possible. It's going to come down to who rotates out of lane first. Is it going to be Ducky? Is it going to be Yarkor? And who gets an effective rotation? That's more important. I like the odds of Ducky rotating first just because of the additional mobility that he's going to get from 72 transformations. But with the assistance of Sino and Wolfie in mid as well, that's where Obey needs to look for their fight.
Support's starting to leave the duo lane alone. Imagine now you start to see that 3v3 really start to boil over. Sanguine, small advantages over on the left side of the map, could make for an early Fury here, just about. 500-600 gold leads, so nothing to scoff at, but also nothing game-breaking for Obey just yet. But Obey not working with some of those early game leads that we know they have been able to in the games, the sets that they've been able to win. This is where you want to start to see Sanguine exert some pressure, invade in on the jungle. It's the right side of the map, invade. Oh my, so much damage taken down by Sino. Rongyu will hit the wall as well. Searing Pain flies through. Rongyu taken low, and talk about the collapse from Obey Alliance. Great rotation there. They pick up an extra kill, but Sanguine want more. Shinto from range will pick up one onto Sino. And now Inbound, the one looking a little bit nervous. Nowhere for him to go. And now it's going to be Yarkor who picks up the kill. Obey Alliance, they thought they had found a fight that they were happy with, but instead Sanguine the ones who turn it around.
The poison spreads. Ducky, even if he makes it up into the air, is going to fall down to Circat. Wolfie, now left alone and isolated, going to be trying his best to make it out of that situation, and he does. Obey have such a good response to the early aggression from Sanguine in their jungle, but they overstay ever so slightly, and Sanguine aren't going to forgive you for it. They walk away with an easy win.
And that's where this early game starts to tumble. You won't say out of control just yet, and important to note, Wolfie picks up a kill on the back end of that fight. So 1-0-1 now for Wolfie on this Raw. And maybe, I don't know if you call that an overstay or what, but it looks like a fantastic collapse from Obey Alliance, and you'd think that Sanguine are overextending. But at the end of the day, it's really not there, Mifwin, and now it's Sanguine with the ball in their court, the ability to start to make this game roll. Wowie does have his beads here. Does not have the ultimate. Rongyu pops the sprint, closes the gap, but a sidestep from Wowie will keep him alive.
They step forward though. Sino wants to get the counter gank, can't find the ring bounce, but can isolate Rongyu.
There's a stun onto Rongyu, immediately turned around, though Sino actually eats about half of his HP in response. Inbound closing the gap as well, but a little bit late to the party, not able to affect anything that's happening on the left side of the map. So that 600 or so gold lead now makes its way all the way up to about 2,000, and Sanguine absolutely in the driver's seat, Mifwin. Maybe now we start to see more of a shift over towards some objective secure. The Gold Fury still here, the ability to invade on the left side of the map.
And Sanguine has got objective secure. Sure, they don't really have the range contention that maybe Wolfie's bringing on the Raw, but Rongyu with the Ice Shard should be able to confirm just about anything that Sanguine starts up. If they find a pick onto Wowie or even onto Inbound, they can immediately move in towards the Gold Fury. But Sanguine has shown so much control even on the solo side of the map that I think Obey should be worried about the Pyromancer as well.
Absolutely, and that's something we've seen teams split though. You know, one team will go over for the Pyro, the other will take away that Fury. So that's probably something Obey have to keep in mind for their own as well. If you know Sanguine's going to sell out for this Fury, maybe you're able to take away the Pyro. Small collapse. Inbound has to use the dash to stay alive, and wouldn't you guess it, Obey Alliance shift over towards the Pyromancer, and they'll take that objective for free. Sanguine has not started up the Gold Fury, and Obey Alliance are able to get away with one.
Sanguine waited a little bit too long after hearing it, so now they have no chance. Netrioid forced into the ultimate.
He buys enough time for the rest of Sanguine to collapse on an Inbound, is able to ult away, stays alive with a sliver of HP. Sanguine burned that ultimate, but a couple burnt off of their own as well. Now it's the Gold Fury started up. Obey Alliance starting to rotate their way in. Wolfie, Searing Pain, ready to go. Sino dashes in, but he has no HP. Shinto, easiest kill of his life. Wolfie with the snipe though. Down goes Netrioid, and for the time being, the Gold Fury is delayed.
Fantastic play from Wolfie there. If he doesn't find that snipe, Gold Fury goes down for free every single time. Sino tries to use the Windfire Wheels to bring up Panaton, but unfortunately whiffs it and immediately loses his life in exchange. Now, Sanguine, again though, have proven that they've been able to win these team fights pretty well. They forced Bobby back initially with his own ultimate. Without the ultimate, the defender of Olympus, Athena, has to just walk on back to the Gold Fury. It was a fantastic opportunity for Sanguine to try and take something. Unfortunately though, Obey a little bit too quick.
Mifflin, I think our eyes have to shift towards the mid laners here, 13 minutes in. Shinto sitting at 3-1-1, a great start for this Persephone. Wolfie as well, 2-0-1. One level behind, though, for this Raw. Look at the way Shinto's starting to build, though. Anti-heal, a little bit of power, a little bit of penetration early on, immediately into that sovereignty.
Yeah, good eyes, Dave. That's an interesting pivot for a Persephone. She's going to be sacrificing a lot of damage here, but if the strategy of Obey is to have Sino set up with the Windfire Wheels every single time, this sovereignty is going to get so much value. Wolfie's still going to do a lot of damage with the Searing Pain in return, and it might still be enough to kill him, but if Shinto moves into something like a Void Stone or a little bit of magic defense, he's going to become an absolute tank in these fights.
And I think the important thing to look at now, if you're looking at overall meta game of where we stand 14 minutes in, is that the Gold Fury never ended up falling down. So Sanguine and Obey still have the big objective to fight over here, and that one could be the biggest game changer. We've held somewhat stagnant around that 1,000 to 2,000 gold lead. Obey Alliance have done well, though, to shrink that down by about half. So starting to feel a little bit more comfortable for the Chaos team as we stand here. But I agree, though, I think Wolfie now needing to stand tall against his counterpart over here on this Persephone. That healing, especially with the way he's built himself, will be ever so important around these objectives.
You know, Dave, I want to see Inbound do exactly that. Dash in, find some taunts, start to move in towards the 3v3, because so often in these engagements, it's Sanguine finding Inbound, isolated out, forcing him back to base, and then falling back to the Gold Free. Something similar here as Sanguine groups up around the gold looking for Wolfie.
Oh, and it's a taunt in onto Wolfie. The wall is there from Rongyu. Once more, Aegis used, and Wolfie double knockup now from Yarkor on the rotation over from the solo lane. Inbound, blocked on in with Sanguine. Big fight here for the Vamos squad. Sino makes his way back beneath the tier 1 tower. Wall goes up, wall goes down. It's a double pick for Sanguine. Maybe now you make your way to the Fury Pit.
Absolutely, Dave. A fantastic fight. Sanguine showing dominance really around Obey's jungle. Every single time a fight starts, it's inside Obey's side of the map. Sanguine is trying to stifle them, and it's working perfectly. Gold Fury, a double kill. They can move on, take a tower as well. Such a huge gold swing. 3,000 now in favor of Sanguine.
And Mifflin, this I think is the important note for the rest of this set, in that Obey Alliance has been behind, I won't mince words, pretty consistently at the 15, 16-minute mark throughout Season 7. What adjustments do you think we've needed to see from Obey? Obey of old to Obey of Worlds Week that maybe gets them back into this game that you maybe haven't seen up to this point in Season 7?
I'm not seeing the ultimate combos that I was expecting to see. We haven't seen the Windfire Wheel into a Searing Pain. We haven't seen a Confound into a Searing Pain. It's not as if Obey didn't draft a comp that can fight competently in the 3v3, but so far it's been an unwillingness, or maybe just an incapable to do it, because Sanguine has been playing so aggressively around this dual lane, spreading thin the resources of Obey. But we're getting to the point now where this gold lead isn't too bad. 3,016 minutes, sure, is a decent amount, but Obey is still able to fight in. I just want to see more proactive play around this Athena.
Right, small moments where Obey have the setup, but hasn't been consistent all that often at all. Inbound uses the taunt here. Maybe now is the time for Obey Alliance to strike. Rongyu into the ultimate. Is he going to live? No chance here. Ducky is in on the chase and will finally finish off the kill, but it took a little bit longer than Obey were hoping for. Windfire Wheels up, down. Wolfie with the snipe on a Netrioid. Obey Alliance, they bought their time, and now they've got a double kill over in the jungle.
And what's the difference maker, Dave? Inbound starts the fight with a taunt onto Netrioid, forces the beads, and forces him in the air instantly. Obey collapsed perfectly as Sanguine meanders throughout their jungle, but what are they going to do with this time with 2 dead? Maybe group up, try and siege down the mid tower, or move towards the Pyro.
Right, when you have a 5 versus 3 advantage, that's when you need to start closing this gold gap, and you can see Obey Alliance playing with a little bit more fire now, but Yarkor not concerned about the numbers disadvantage. Dives in, double knockup. Wow, he uses the Aegis. Yarkor roars him right onto the graveyard. Are you kidding me? This is a disadvantage fight for Sanguine, and they're the ones fighting the kills. Obey Alliance somehow losing this fight. Now Sanguine returning back from base. Watch out, the reinforcements, Mifflin, they're on their way.
Sanguine 3 versus 5, and they want more. They're able to find Shito in the back. Inbound picks one up for themselves. Obey trying to turn it back around, but now the reinforcements you brought up have closed the gap.
Inbound taunts and then dashes away. He'll stay alive. What a drawn-out fight there, Mifflin. And how about the guts from Sanguine? You are down 2 members, but you've got all you need there, I suppose. Yarkor, Panatom, Shinto, the 3 left alive, but maybe they overstay there towards the end, Miff. They end up losing 1.
You call it guts, Dave. I'm going to call it disrespect. I'm getting shades of that interview there.
Yeah, we already know
3
that.
versus 5, and we don't care. You can't just walk into those engagements freely. But Obey played a little bit poorly. They de-group. They allow Sanguine to take these artificial 1v1s before Obey is able to respond and pick up a couple kills in return. What should have been a huge opportunity for the Chaos team, maybe a Pyromancer, a tier 1 tower in mid, turns into nothing because Sanguine just fought better.
Absolutely. Obey Alliance, though, able to kind of keep things where it stands, though. Not game-changing all that much one way or another. Obey Alliance already have the first Pyromancer of the game. Work their way over towards what could be the second. Sanguine not necessarily in range just yet. Yarkor will poke his head around the corner, but no real danger of that one being stolen away. So a change I think we have seen, though, Mifflin, is Obey Alliance a bit better at these snap decisions to go for the Pyromancer, go for some of these side objectives.
It's a very objective mindset for the Obey Alliance roster right now, but I want to see what we saw initially, how they won the initial fight. Inbound, dashing in, finding these taunts. Already now, Athena's 2 levels up. He can do just about no wrong. He's so tanky, potentially the tankiest person on the map. He needs to be the first one in on these engagements.
Yeah, what a change in the duo lane there, right? Where Inbound and Wowie were backs against the wall throughout almost the entire laning phase, but now it's Inbound who's found a way to carve back a lead for himself, and that'll be game-changing. Once you start to get to some of those higher levels on this Athena, the difference will be there, and maybe, Mifflin, that's some of the concern around this Ymir pick, where early on you saw the advantages of an aggressive playstyle on this pick, and now you're starting to see how he can fall a bit behind.
He went a little bit squishy with his build as well. The Stone Abiding so early on got a lot of value insofar as aggression and the ability to deal damage. Like we saw earlier, he's able to do about 50% of Cyno's health with the Freeze Glacial Strike combo. But he's not able to bring that same level of frontline that we're seeing from Athena right now. That's Obey's biggest strength. They need to utilize it because it's the one leg up they have.
Plenty of tankiness being built throughout Obey Alliance there as well. Shield of Regrowth picked up on Cyno. And then a Pridwin as well for Inbound. As far as Athena builds go, Miff, we have kind of limited data points as all things go in that department. Do you think Inbound and the way he's built makes some sense?
Yeah, I like it. That Talisman of Energy for the additional movement speed is going to help him maneuver around these fights a lot more adeptly. He should be able to find high priority confounds. Keep your eyes on just about anyone, truthfully, on the side of Sanguine. Even Yarkor should be feeling a little bit of threat. He does have a very tanky build, but take a peek at Wowie's build. It's the traditional tank shredder with the kin size, the Odysseus bow. Yeah, I don't think Yarkor is going to survive a full 2-second taunt.
Yeah, it's a good point. And we haven't really had a moment to talk about Yarkor after some of the early diving that we've seen from him. That's a level 19 Kilcullen, by the way. We're concerned maybe about the level difference between Inbound and Rongyu, 2 levels where that one stands. Yarkor 2 levels over Ducky. So 304 on this Kilcullen. And Myth, now you're starting to get to this 20-minute mark. You're going to start to see these full 5v5 fights around the big objectives. Fury has respawned. Fire Giant is there standing. That's maybe where the difference can stand. Yarkor with a bit of a lead over Ducky.
Obey going to be the first ones to the Gold Fury, and they're going to start it up immediately. Sanguine spread throughout the entirety of the map. I don't think they're going to get there in time.
A bit of sleep at the wheel here is Sanguine, and Obey Alliance sneak another one away. It does not look like all that great of ward coverage by Sanguine. You have some right at the onset of the pit there. You wonder if Sanguine knew and just didn't feel like taking the fight, or Obey Alliance just a bit sneaky.
Look, if Sanguine knew, they're taking the fight, Dave. They're taking 3 versus 5s. I think they'd be more than willing to defend the Gold Fury here, but now Sanguine, ahead on a swivel, want to immediately move in towards the other objective. They do get the ward from Obey off of the Fire Giant, but they immediately give up the defensive positioning. If Obey want to, they could just saunter on in and get vision back.
Oh, Myth, talk about the swings here in this game. We have a moment, I think, to take a bit of a breath. The 3,000 gold lead has now disappeared. We're looking at about 1,000 for Sanguine, where it was much worse earlier on in this game. Ducky maybe being dove here, and he sure is. Pulled back in by Panatom. Half HP on the Sun Wukong. Healed up just a bit, but it's a taunt back in from Inbound. The rest of Obey Alliance, they're here to play as well. Panatom trying to leave. Down, back to earth, crashes. Yarkor deleted by Wolfie. Sano's the one who ends up picking up the kill. Obey Alliance They've cauterized some of the early wounds, and now it's another taunt in onto Rongyu, and look at all the damage pouring in from Obey Alliance. The wall's not going to save you this time, and Wolfie has another.
The chain CC is ridiculous. If you get hit by taunt, you're getting hit by sash. You're getting hit by updraft from Jingwei. You're not allowed to walk away without putting up a fight if you're on the side of Sanguine. Now with 2 dead, where are Obey going to go? Fire Giant seems like the call.
Who is this Obey Alliance, and what have you done with Obey of old? FG the call now after 2 picks over onto Sanguine. Wolfie halfway to his ultimate there. Panatom alive, he has his ult. Netrioid with the snipes as well. Still the opportunity for a steal here for Sanguine. Fire Giants taken low. It's a taunted for Panatom. Sanguine, they steal this one away just when you think Obey have a massive advantage. It gets stripped away by Sanguine, and now Panatom with another kill as well. Netrioid just awaiting death down on the ground. The final snipe misses. Sino grabs the kill, but Mifflin, that's not much of a silver lining after Sanguine steal away the FG.
That's huge for Sanguine. I mean, they've still got the gold lead from earlier on. Now 2 members with Fire Giant as well. Obey have to sit on their hands until an objective respawns. They can't really force anything. You don't want to siege a tower when the enemy's got Fire Giant. Sanguine, that steal may have saved the game for them. Had Obey been able to get Fire Giant out of 5 members, look how much neutral gold is still up on the map for them. 3 tier 2 towers, a tier 1 as well. Now the reverse is true for Sanguine. They can go for a siege at any point. But Obey has shown already they're capable of fighting. If they find an opportunistic strike, if Confound finds 2, that's a clean fight for them.
A gold graph looking like Bitcoin right now, how up and down it's been throughout this game. Neither team, with the lead that they've built, has been able to hold on to it for all that long. And just when you think Obey Alliance are going to start to run away with the game, Sanguine come up big, steal away the big objective. But it's going to be the 3rd Pyromancer of the game over to Obey Alliance, 24.5 minutes in. And you start to look over towards the levels. Mifflin, a lot of those gaps have closed. 4 members of Obey Alliance at level 20. It looks like we're going to get another look at what the steal was here. You think maybe it's the snipes that take away the FG, but instead it's Shinto just off to the side, the last tick of damage.
You can't let that happen. My man essentially walked up slowly and pressed the 1 key, and it's all it took. Now Sanguine on the aggressive are looking to strip away some towers. Obey, don't let it go for free.
That's right, Obey Alliance are going to walk away from the tier 1 tower, but how will they respond here beneath the tier 2? You have to look at the minimap. Inbound over, pushing down the short lane, but he has the ultimate to get back into range. So now that gap close, or rejoining of the fight, has been used by Obey Alliance. They have saved the tier 2 tower at about half HP. Important to look at the relics up to this point as well. Effectively, everyone in the game has everything. Ducky won't have his blink for the next 20 seconds or so. Miff, it's going to be a full strength fight.
I think Obey, if anything, put up a soft defense here, see if you can burn through some of the tools of Sanguine. It's a half-health tier 2 tower. If Sanguine really want it, they're going to be able to take it. Let's see how Obey decides to play around it. Keep your eyes on Bobby. If they want to take the fight, you're going to know the second he dashes in.
Right, Panatom and Shinto, the 2 still with the FG buff around their waist. Panatom lurking off to the right-hand side. Well spotted out there by Doug. A couple wards from Obey Alliance will slow down the Sanguine jungler. And at this point, Miff, maybe Obey Alliance are happy with the way the siege has gone, or maybe not, as Inbound dashes in, immediately walled off by Rongyu. Risky play there. Tanky enough on the Athena, though, I think, to survive the initial onslaught.
Oh, no.
Engage, but does stun down Panatom on the back line of the fight. We are split up here. Obey Alliance trying to kite backwards, but look at what Yarkor is doing. Absolutely decimating the back line of Obey Alliance. No kills have swung through just yet, but maybe Rongyu can slow down the Obey roster. But are you kidding me? With all we've seen, no kills. Ducky, the sacrificial lamb, and Sanguine finally find 1.
And they've already taken the tower. They've already got the positioning around the Phoenix. This bird could go down.
Watch out, now Wolfie falls as well. 3 members of Obey Alliance left standing, and Sanguine aren't happy with just that. Wow, he walled off by Rongyu once again. The Aegis will buy a little bit of time. Sanguine, they smell blood in the water. It's Sino and Inbound. There's not much damage, but there's not much health from Sanguine either, and Sanguine makes the call to turn tail and fight another day.
Interesting decision. I think they may have been able to go for the end there. There are still 3 towers up to keep the defense of the Titan healthy, but 30 seconds left on 3 members. Obey are so weak for so long, but instead Sanguine showing the discipline, a team that wants to make the run for Worlds. They're not going to make any small mistakes. Let's go for the guaranteed play. Tier 2 tower and potentially a Phoenix as well.
Mifflin, can you blame them with the way that this game has gone, right? Where you think you've got this big advantage. Obey Alliance pull it away. You have to have a miracle steal to bring the game back on your side. You have to take the guaranteed move, I think, at this point. 27.5 minutes in, and the guaranteed move is the mid lane Phoenix going down. Now we get a chance, Miff. Slow down, catch our breath for a minute and look at Obey Alliance's realistic chances at defending this base.
Look, man, not often a Fire Giant push with only 2 members with Fire is able to strip away so much. 2 Phoenixes down for the near future. Fire Giant respawning in 30 seconds. Sanguine have absolutely every advantage moving forward in the game. No longer is it Sanguine's game to win, it's their game to lose. Obey have a steep hill to climb up.
Oh, this is going to be some fun to watch. Obey Alliance have shown, if nothing else, regardless of the outcome, they're not going to let this one go quietly. Full-on engage. It's in onto Yarkor. Thorns waiting on the other side. He won't use him just yet. He'll salmon leap his way away. Look at the re-dive from Obey Alliance. Down goes Yarkor, but grasp of death from the back line. That'll set things up well for Netrioid. To taunt back in from Inbound. Netrioid starting to swing. It's a double kill for Netrioid. Shinto, a triple for the ROM, and Sanguine get the D aside 28.5 minutes in.
They got Yarkor, but at what cost? The cost is the game. Sanguine, 4 members, going to barrel down towards the Titan. I understand Obey's idea there. They have to do something. They know they're not going to win a team fight cleanly under their own structures, so they want to find someone picked out. Unfortunately, who they found was the tankiest member of Sanguine, Yarkor, by so much time.
Oh, what a time for a pause here. Sanguine walking down the mid lane, just on the verge of ending things here, Miff. And this is a foregone conclusion at this point, depending on how things look on the other end of this pause. We're going to be going on in to the post game. So let's look just a little bit, Miff, I think, at the way that this game changed, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of this game, and how Sanguine ahead, behind, in the game, out of the game, and then finally find their footing in the late, find some team fights, and will ultimately win.
I think that Sanguine just needs to clean up the early game a little bit. Yeah. A couple of those fights that they took and lost were with huge advantages. Same as you said with Obey, though, losing a 3 versus 5 engagement. Not something that you can expect to see too often, but I think that Sanguine really did let Obey have too much space. They had stifled that duo lane. They controlled it 2 levels up at a point for both members, and then they allow Inbound to rotate out and find multiple huge confounds. Even that last team fight, a 3-man confound, absolutely ridiculous.
And really, Obey kind of sold out for Yarkor there on that final fight. I mean, they taunted him in. Sino hits the ultimate. At some point, you're wondering how much you're willing to pour into this uber tanky solo laner, because on the back end of it, Netrioid was just strolling out of base, full HP. Shinto hits a massive ultimate there as well. You think it's a miscall on the engage there from Obey?
I think the idea of trying to find a pick is huge. They have to do that. But once they realize, oh, it's Yarkor, we're not killing Yarkor easily. He might die, and he did, but at what cost, Dave? The entire game. I think had Obey recognized earlier on, they didn't have to commit fully even after they had found the initial engagement. They could have got that small damage check and then back off, but Obey went for the all-in. They pay the price.
Well, Mifflin, as we know, Sanguine gets the win here. It was foregone conclusion, just needed to see the Titan fall, and fall the Titan did. Sanguine walks their way down the mid lane and takes game number 1 over Obey. It's bounce back time for this Obey team, Mifflin. Sanguine, they've obviously come to play. I think Obey have as well. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, guys on the desk will break it down.
Into the night, the city lights are dancing, slowly falling apart. The shadows causing an outbreak. I'm wishing upon a star. This time I'm feeling stronger, and I know I can do better. The shadows causing an outbreak. I'm turning the light. We're gonna light it up, oh, light it up, ooh, light it up, causing an outbreak. I'm turning the light. We're gonna light it up, oh, light it up, ooh, light it up,
Well, so far, Obey Sanguine has certainly delivered in the excitement department. First, Sanguine stomp an early game, and then all of a sudden, Obey comes roaring back, gets a bunch of kills. Then Sanguine steals a Fire Giant. Then Obey pushes them back. It was an incredible game, but it ultimately ends up with a Sanguine victory. I know all of us in the green room were yelling together whenever Sanguine ended up stealing that Fire Giant, and you've got a chance to be doing the same thing with a bunch of friends that you can meet in our official Discord to watch the SWC at home this year. Don't have to be yelling by yourself in the room that I can't believe they didn't zone, and I can't believe that Netrioid and Shinto just walked up and stole away that Fire Giant. So make sure you're joining that official Discord. You can find the link in the chat, of course, and right below me right here. Also, you can get some advice from those people that you meet in the Discord on how to get put on the broadcast. In case you didn't know, if you use the hashtag SWC at home on Twitter, you've got a chance to be featured on how you're watching, and hopefully you're having a better time than Volg. That setup looks like just about my nightmare, Gormizer. In the dentist chair, though, I do appreciate that dedication.
Yeah, that's full-on commitment. I don't know. Maybe just a cleaning, right? If it's just like a cleaning, I feel like you're able to sit there and potentially watch. If you're getting like a wisdom tooth removed there, that's just full-on impressive that you can even focus, let alone think about SMITE.
Yeah, you won't be able to remember the games, I can tell you that much. You're going to have to go back and watch the VOD if that's the case, but hopefully it's just a quick little cleaning there for Volg. Look, Gore, I mean, this game was impressive from Obey in a lot of aspects. It was impressive by Sanguine in a lot of aspects, and clearly a lot to work on for both teams.
It was really weird because it's the only time I think this week that we're going to get Ovrin the opportunity to make the same meme twice is you killed blank and what did it cost you? Everything. We got to see it with Belt Slap and Renegades when they finally got rid of Inenu. And it happened at the end of the game here with Yarkor as well. I think that when it came down to it, the one thing you highlighted was the best thing about this Sanguine composition. And it was wrong you. It was this Ymir stopping everyone. I mean, if the wall went up at the right time and they caught him, then it was a win for Sanguine. If it didn't, maybe it was a prolonged win for Sanguine. Either way, it always felt like it was going in their favor. And the fact that they were able to go forward with it, Sino didn't really have a lot of presence early on. And when you get to this late game portion, there's like a 17, 18-minute mark. They turn it around, they get to that Fire Giant, and then they lose the Fire Giant. If they get that Fire Giant there as Obey, it's a different game. We're maybe even looking at an Obey win.
I think we are.
But that was a nail in the coffin. I don't care how well you play after that, you just don't come back from a moment like that.
Dude, that Persephone ult from Shinto is just, it's illegal.
It's dirty.
It's not allowed. You're not allowed to do that because then all of a sudden Netrioid gets to pound the damage numbers with that Odysseus bow. 4-0 and 13 for Panatom. Heck of a game for him. And look, I thought for stretches of that game, Inbound was playing better than Rongyu. He really did start to be that initiator and use that Sunder and use that dash taunt really effectively. But when Shinto's going to put out 25,000 damage.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And Netrioid's going to put out 19,000 damage. It's just going to be difficult to execute the game plan. And Sino's Naja did a lot of work in this game. I thought Sino played really, really well. Naja is just not as strong as he was last time we saw Sino really dominate on this pick. And the way that teams are better at playing around it, I think, has really improved as well. Sino really made a name for himself on that pick by ulting tanks and setting up compositions that way. Not getting the kill on the Yarkor there at the very end. I didn't see if Wolfie's Snite hit. It looked a little bit off to me. I don't know what happened on that Fire Giant play. I mean, that's Wolfie's job to secure, but at the same time, Obey needs to be zoning in that instance.
And it goes back to the conversation we were having kind of before all this, which is like, cool, like, pull something new out of the box, right? And we'd said, Obey, like, hey, your meta box is locked up in the attic, it's dusty. But at the same time, this is a composition, at least that kind of style. That's how they were bringing out Raw. They did it like 4 weeks in a row. Like, of course they know how to play against this. You kept pulling it out in Phase 2. So I think this is the chance that Obey have to take to say, you know what? We can't play the same SMITE we've been playing all year. I think that should be obvious. You've been losing at that SMITE all year.
Yeah.
You have to change it now, or you're going to get knocked out. A lot of people have had hopes for this team. I honestly have thought we were going to see a really interesting Obey for this. Maybe that was a warm-up game, right? Maybe you come into this and you've got 4 more technically if you want.
As far as I'm concerned, they should have won that game. They really were winning every mid-game fight. It wasn't until they lost that Fire Giant and lost all the momentum and then pick a bad fight after that. But as soon as the grouping started, Obey looked better. So I think that that loss hurts, and you've got to find a way to get past it. But a lot of good things for Obey in that game as Hebo set and now the ROM for Netrioid banned away. Makes sense after Netrioid does that much work on that pick. And Sanguine sticking to a lot of their bans in the Cupid and the Emoja, but now the Raw ban, keeping that out of Wolfie's hands.
I really like that just because, again, like you said, it keeps it out of Wolfie's hands. Raw is prominent in the best of hands, and I think Wolfie showcased that his hands with Raw are the best of hands in the right moments, right? Like you said, didn't secure that Fire Giant, didn't quite pick up that kill on the Yarkor, whether it was a little wide or what have you at the very end of that last game. But it is something that you have to take away, and that's been the converse, I think, around Obey. This Cupid-Raw combo has been winning them games, and if you take that away, they just aren't quite as interesting.
Guan Yu still a healer, though, for them, and they'll be able to snap up right away, and what do you know? Shinto goes, yeah, give me that one more
I
time.
guess I'll play Persephone again.
I kind of messed around and did 25,000 player damage, which is the most we've seen from anybody so far here at the SMITE World Championship, though our first set was a little bit quicker. As Persephone and Ymir are the picks, and Obey double down on the healing. They go hell.
I don't mind the double down on the healing. This is what I mind, though. Last game, one of the big issues. Hey, that Ymir wall was a really big problem. What are we going to do? Guan Yu, Hell, Heimdall. Let's just get a bunch of people that still have trouble. I guess Heimdall can technically make it over it, but he's not necessarily the fastest. You're not going to reaction leap over that the same way like an Honor might that you might see out of some others. It feels a lot like, I think I just willed that into existence.
You did.
That was really
good
weird. But it feels like they are giving Wrong Yu an edge up where they shouldn't be. That's already something that's scary. He's been a big player for that. The healing, though, is going to be nice. I think that has to be said on the other side of it, right? Like, yes, you're picking some really easy to pick off gods, but at the same time, you're getting some of the highest sustain that you've ever had. Plus, with Guan Yu, that Ymir, especially if he ults, is going to be a lot easier with that protection shred.
Very easy to kill Ymir while channeling that Shards of Ice. Is what do you know? Sino's Naja gets a little bit of respect coming from Sanguine this time around, banned away in the second phase. And then the Kepri once again. You look at the bans against Obey in Game 1, it was a lot of focus on the Inbound. Inbound much more free to take one of his picks here. He had 4 support bans in Game 1 and a pick early on he had to get around, and that's how he ended up on that Athena. Now things like Sobek, Fafnir, gods that were banned away from him in Game 1 are on the table.
I think the Sobek a little more prominent, at least in my eyes, for what we could see out of him. Plus, against an Anher Ymir, which is a 2012 kill lane, I mean, that is like, you're going up against the most classic Smite, and I feel like Sobek goes into that matchup, maybe not the best, but at least he's used to it overall. And they did it.
They did it.
They did it.
I'm happy for you, Gore Miser.
I can go mark that off. He's been sitting alone in a column in a spreadsheet for like a year, I guess.
Yeah, a full
he
year
had
at
some
this point.
friends, I guess, up until the end of Phase 2. They actually did it. I have no idea what to say about Loki other than a lot of people were saying he was going to be a secret pocket pick.
Well, here he comes from Sanguine. Could be in the solo lane or could be in jungle. We'll wait and see how they round out their draft. We'll talk a lot about what he'll bring once all 10 picks are locked in. Erlong Shen, another Sino signature. Sino's going back into the bag of tricks, and I got to say, I'm a fan.
I really like this lineup from Obey. I think Hell is good for Wolfie. The Sobek fits well with the team. Heimdall, I mean, Zapman is the one that I think of the first when I think of this Heimdall, but something that should go pretty well for Wowie here. It really does depend on Panatom now. Right? I mean, that's the wild card that comes through. This new Loki that hasn't been played by any of the SBL teams. We got to see SOT playing it down there during the wild cards, but he hasn't been very prominent. And Panatom, even though he might not always be the centerpiece that's raised up on the pedestal, last time that was Shinto, he is always essential for this team's victory. If he has a bad game, it all falls out from underneath him. So this Loki either is going to knock it out of the park or lose them the game, and I don't know which.
And then we don't know really which build he's going to go for either, because Loki in the jungle, oftentimes you think of a full damage build, but you talked about SOT's performance at those wild cards. He was building bruiser, mostly tank Loki with Glad Shield and Pridwin and Sledge and things along that line. I think you like some tankiness up against this roster of Obey. You don't want to get Erlong pinned into Hell 1 damage and all of a sudden you're half HP, but would he have enough damage to take down the healing that's on the other side without it?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question. Dealing with the healing is just complicated in general at the very beginning, but dealing with it with this composition is going to be difficult. What you work into your build, if he's going tanky, it's not too difficult to pick up something like a Pestilence or a Contagion, throw the other one onto either a Cerberus or a Ymir, and you're happy. But because you have Cerberus and Ymir, maybe you go something like a Toxic Blade if you want some more attack speed. You could go the Brawlers, the typical assassin one that I completely glanced over while talking about tank items because I know my own home. But either way, I think that's something that he could glance into, but it's whether or not he's able to find the pressure. Locking down help shouldn't be too difficult. Locking down someone like a Heimdall, maybe a little bit more problematic. You can chase him through the Bifrost if he's close enough with your ult, but even still trying to close that gap and hope that Wowie isn't just outright outplaying you using his beads or something to escape you after that, I feel like it's going to be iffy to go to the dual lane.
Don't forget, Heimdall, the best character in the whole game at dealing with stealth, not
Yeah.
only with his extra vision from the 1, but the 2 wide cone, getting you out of stealth pretty easily, so that's something that Loki has to worry about, especially with that knock-up close range once you do end up closing that gap. We talked a lot about this healing from Obey, but Sanguine do have this Cerberus locked in, a good way to deal with some of that healing just by being around him.
Yeah, hang out, you get some of the healing, they get less healing just intrinsically, and it feels good, as well as the fact that you're going to disrupt the team fight, right? Guan Yu now has 2 tanks that he has to focus on and try to break down between the Ymir and the Cerberus, but Cerberus has that setup. You're going to force a Hell Cleanse or you're going to force Beads. And either way, I think you're going to be happy with it because then Ymir can follow up with a Freeze. And if you do it vice versa, then you're getting a really big Cerberus ult. So they have a lot of good setup potential for the beginnings of team fights. That's where Sanguine always tend to show their prowess. So I think as long as it gets to that late game and they get grouped up without too much of a deficit, Sanguine will be just fine.
Now, even though Wolfie's really known for that Ra in particular, the one he just played, Hell is a healer, but kind of the opposite of Ra in my mind. Ra, very long range, follow-up damage. Hell has to get close to deal that damage oftentimes. I don't know how well he can do up against this composition that really punishes you for getting too close.
It's the really awkward conundrum of I need my damage to go off, so I have to hug you, but also I need to be back here so I can make sure my cleanse and my heal are good for my teammates. And making that balance is difficult. That's why we don't see a lot of people who pull it out. Paul, notably, maybe the best Hell that we have in the league. But Wolfie has played this with a lot of success in the past, so I'm not too scared for what he's going to be able to bring. The thing I'm most worried about is, you cover up that Persephone, you cover up that Cerberus, you technically have 3 gods that have been in the game for years and years, and you should know how to play against. Loki maybe has a caveat because of the rework, but overall, you should know how to play against them, but they're all so deadly, and they all bring so much that I think is unique to the table, that then you add in that Persephone and the Cerberus, it just gets difficult for Obey.
Interesting to note that Obey, again, does not really respect that Ymir wall. Still, a bunch of gods that do not have an easy way over that wall, save for the Heimdall. We'll see if Rongyu can make him pay once again here in game number 2, or if Obey Alliance can turn it around and maybe secure a Fire Giant this time around. Eh, fellas?
There's a 1 on the scoreboard for Sanguine. Whether it's skill or luck, I think depends on which of the 2 teams you ask here, Mifflin. Sanguine are going to say it's all skill. We steal away the FG. We seal up game number 1. Obey are thinking unlucky. We end up losing game 1. We had it in the palm of our hands. Miff, I don't know if either one is necessarily unwarranted. I think Obey are probably happy, all things considered. If you're happy with a loss, let me clarify. If you're happy with a loss, it's probably a loss like game 1 where it just kind of falls away and you don't necessarily make a huge throw, anything like that.
Dave, it's not often I get to say this, but I didn't relate to a single word that came out. Happy with the loss in any circumstance.
You show up, you're getting into Worlds, you're thinking, all right, nobody thinks we're going to stand a chance, and then you stand a chance. Of course, you're devastated at a loss, but I'm saying if you can accept a loss, maybe it's one like you had in game 1.
Yeah, Obey is definitely more mature than I am. I would not be happy with that loss. I'd be stomping my feet, complaining about that Fire Giant steal. But I think Obey's mind should be on the game ahead of them. And it seems like Sanguine have brought a very distinct identity to their draft. It seems like they were jamming it down. Pressure in the duo lane in game 1. What did they bring in game 2? More of the same. Anher and Ymir are going to be holding W keys so hard that they're going to have to replace the keycap after this.
Yeah, why not? Rongyu looked great on it in game 1. It's a pivot, though, for Inbound here. You got the Sobek, so maybe the ability to set up for Heimdall, but Myth, is there going to be enough pressure returning immediately early on in this lane from this Heimdall to provide that kill pressure?
I just don't think so. If any kill pressure is coming from the dual lane on the side of Obey, it's going to be off the back of a gank. Erlang Shen should be the one you keep your eyes on. If Sino rotates over early, he's got a lot of pressure potential into this Ymir.
And I think we haven't talked about, well, this. Sino finding early pressure. Didn't see it at all in game 1. Now see just a little bit of it in game number 2. And on the opposite side of the map, Wrongyu has found a stun over onto Inbound. I think that's an important pivot, though, Miff. We've seen Sino kind of poke his head into one of the lanes. I guess you'd argue for the first time so far this set, Panatom was really driving the pressure on the duo lane there in game number 1. Sino just had to farm, I think, in order to keep up. Way too much action, I think, to follow along with right now. Inbound rooted in place, the damage pouring on through, the knockback from Wowie maybe delays any further in engagement. But Inbound has just not been able to get comfortable.
Yeah, on her, use the impale onto Inbound so it doesn't get the wave clear, so Bobby ticks over to level 3, whereas Sanguine's dual lane stuck at level 2 trying to find that kill pressure, unfortunately for them. But they do burn through a lot of Inbound's resources. Health potions are starting to dwindle away. He's not going to be able to take these aggressive trades much longer.
And Sanguine are going to work back, secure their own purple buff this time. Not the same amount of pressure that we saw in game 1 where Obey Alliance considered their own purple buff and immediately died for it on the back end of things there. So all things better, I think, for Obey, at least to start off here on this game. Ducky in desperate need of this blue buff. Luckily, Sino close by and able to secure this one for his solo laner. How about this double Guardian composition, though, over for Sanguine? Myth in set 1, we saw double Warrior, no Guardian. Now we're getting a look at the double Guardian mindset from Sanguine.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's really fitting into that W key mindset. These guys are looking to play aggressively. Yarkor on this Cerberus is going to be able to burn away the beads. If anyone's beads are down, Panatom's going to pick it up in that back line very easily with the ultimate. Wrongyu could blink forward, find a freeze as well. Essentially, in my mind, every single piece of Sanguine's draft is going to be best used in the dive. Even Shinto on this Persephone, you dive, commit your life, doesn't matter, kill him post-mortem.
And that's another good point there, Miff. I still can't believe Shinto got Persephone again. I mean, an absurd ultimate there to seal up game number 1. Ridiculous amount of damage. I mean, there was so much going on into that game that it was kind of easy for us to gloss over the damage charts. Aggro kind of staged it for us there. 25,000 damage, I think the highest of anyone so far here in the SMITE World Championship. So you're rolling the dice, I think, if you're Obey, giving this pick over to Shinto once more when you've already been proven that he can play it against you.
Yeah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't put the blame on you, right? This is going to be a hard knock life for Obey Alliance having to deal with Shinto on a pick that I think is synonymous with him, really. He loves this Persephone. He's hitting his abilities consistently. That Bone Rush is not easy to aim at these engagements, but every single time it finds itself home in the chest of someone on the side of Obey.
And I am curious, though, Miff, when we've talked a little bit about the double Guardian mindset, the run-at-you play style. I'm so intrigued to see what direction Yarkor starts to go with this build here. Early on, a little extra power in those boots. I mean, as somebody who plays mid, backline, I've had Cerberus build just a couple of damage items, and he just sits on me. I mean, you can get soloed by a Cerberus with just a little bit of extra damage on the top of it. So Yarkor, maybe with a bruisery mindset here, can make a massive difference and even kill off whether it's Wolfie or Wowie on his own.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's likely going to move in towards physical defense first and then immediately potentially into some raw damage as Sino tries to step forward and strip away that blue buff. This time, Yarkor able to confirm it for himself. Panatom's been pretty quiet on this Loki jungle, not something we've been able to see too often, but when it does see fruition in ranked or on streams, it's that early aggression, the ability to go in very early on, make use of those slows, and just attack. And up against a Hell, it's going to be a little bit harder to get value out of that ultimate. The cleanse is going to make it near impossible to find the stun. But he should still be looking to put the pressure there. If Wolfie's allowed to free farm, a late game Hell's scary.
Well, that's a good point, Mifflin. We've talked a bit about Shinto, how you pick the Persephone again, you give it over to him. How much of this Hell do you think is in response to this Persephone being picked up by Shinto? You say, all right, well, look, we've seen how you can play it in game 1. Maybe this Hell is a way to answer that.
Yeah, I think it's due in large part. That cleanse actually deals with almost every single pick that Sanguine has. Impale on a wall, yeah, only cleanse my boy. Freeze, yeah, he's cleansed. You're not doing anything with that. And Loki ult, with the change, is so slow now, you should be able to cleanse it every time.
Inbound is rotated his way on over. Netrioid, the leap is down. Lurking in the waters is there as well. Netrioid will eat half of his HP That's about it, though, for the time being. So Inbound looking for the engagement. Nothing really burnt from Netrioid, though, on her. Don't get to see him all that often. Absolutely safe enough in his own right as far as the leap defensively goes. But I think you got to admire that mindset here from Inbound, not shaken by the way that game one went, still looking for some pressure early on here, but Sanguine maybe looking for a collapse. Panatom close by, but instead we'll just fight over some farm, and Sino will head back to base.
Surprised that Obey is able to play so aggressively in this lane. There's a nice little cheeky wall from Rongyu. Doesn't really change much there, but does look nice as Obey moving to the purple.
I like the way Sino cancels his back there. Purple buff dropped down, but Inbound will have to be cleansed away there by Wolfie on in. Wolfie first blood. Down goes Rongyu. Oh, big stun though from Sanguine on the right-hand side of the fight, and Shinto will answer back with one of his own, but Wolfie is rotated to the tune of a double kill. A fantastic start here for Obey Alliance, but they might lose more in the process. Now it's Netrioid who gets knocked back.
What?
Inbound survives, and he turns it around for a kill. Will Shinto survive? Not for the time being. Inbound finds the block, a triple kill for Wolfie. What a start for Obey.
Dream situation for Obey. Wolfie triple kill on the hell. This man is huge. That's so much gold. Immediately Doom Orb on this back. And a fantastic play. Wowie with the aggressive ultimate to make sure that his teammates make it out alive. He ulted in at about a quarter health. He didn't care about himself. He's playing for the dub. Obey. Fantastic rotation, man.
And this is it, right? When we were on the halftime show, myself, Gormizer, Aggro, talking about this matchup, I mentioned how when Obey has found early leads, Wolfie tends to get a lot of the kills. This is peak Obey, where an early fight goes their way. The early skirmish, you lose one, but you pull back a big number of kills, and it's a triple kill for Wolfie. So again, I'm going to harp on this again. Now it's time to see how Obey have prepared themselves to capitalize on this early lead out of Wolfie in the mid lane.
I want to see more aggression, truthfully. Now that your hell's huge, she does insane damage. Buko damage out of the mid laner from Obey Alliance. She is chunking. Essentially, she's a Hebo that can also heal your team at this point, so Gold Fury should be on the menu. They should be looking for every single opportunity that they can to leverage this lead in the early. It's only about 1,000 gold at this point, but the experience is a lot more.
And it's fantastic, I think, from Inbound there as well, assisting in 100% of the kills so far. Wolfie, same can be said for him. Where game one, a little bit rough. Again, from Inbound, a little bit rough, but really for everyone, for Obey, as close as things were, you're a little bit disappointed with the way that one ended. I love the way Inbound had the mindset to turn around in that fight, go back in with no health, no mana, set up for the third and final kill there from Wolfie. And I think you can now sense a change in the waters here, Mifflin. This is a lone Sobek walking his way through the backside of the Sanguine jungle, and Sanguine have to respect it.
You got a soul read there, Dave. It's not often a player comes off a loss more confident, but Bobby's everywhere.
I told you.
Maybe a little too far.
Wait, no. I got a soul read in the wrong direction. Inbound is going to lurk in the waters, but Rongyu will detonate. Support on support there as Rongyu will pick up the first. The gap is being closed, though. If Obey Alliance stayed too long, the cleanse, yeah, gets Sino out, but he's pulled right back in by Yarkor this time. Shinto will add one, but Wowie will do the same on a rotation over from the duo lane. Wolfie with his fourth. Sanguine, they thought they found a clean one, but it's anything but. Ducky's here to play as well. 1 kill, 2 assists for the solo laner. Another good fight for Obey.
Yeah, baited by Bobby, I guess. He dies freely to 4 members of Sanguine, and Obey, not willing to let their boy go down without a fight, bring back the team fight in their favor. 3 for 2 total. Sanguine, they're not able to really leverage much here. This Loki isn't getting a ton of value. Sure, he was able to find a stun onto Sino, but that's just about it. As soon as that was over, he was in the grave.
Oh, and Miff, you can already see some early reactions to the way that this game has gone build-wise. It's a stun on in. Great pillar there. Will Wolfie stay alive? Desert Fury, Inbound. He's in range as well. Wolfie survives. Dead to rights is Wolfie there, but a great rotation from the support to keep the mid laner alive. Some good healing there as well. Absolutely cannot discount that. And the healing, I think, is where my mindset goes as well. I was just briefly mentioning how some of the builds have changed. Rongyu with the Contagion first item overall will definitely impact the amount of healing that Wolfie can do.
I'm not sure how Netrioid's mental is going to recover from that. That kill was free. I wasn't even going to say anything. I was like, all right, yeah, he just overstepped for a second into the tower, but now he's full health, and all they lost, Obey that is the shell. Gold Fury, no contention. Sanguine, where you at?
They are not contesting at all. Obey Alliance will take the Gold Fury for themselves, and this is now a trend that we've seen through both games. Remember, it's the Pyromancer twice in Game 1 that Obey Alliance started up, took for free. Sanguine was nowhere close by, and Sanguine did not answer with the Gold Fury in Game 1 during the Pyromancer take by Obey. Now Obey realized they have a lead, they have an advantage early on here, and they'll take the first Fury of the game. How does that translate, though, to the gold lead? Well, it's big. 15 minutes in, remember, into Game 1, it was about 2,000 for Sanguine. I won't say big. It's a medium lead here for Obey Alliance. But that's not a gold lead we've seen hold stable so far here in this set.
This is a holistically different Obey. Usually the lead originates from the jungler, Sino, but it's been aggressive play from the entire team, a concentrated effort to remain grouped and stop aggression from Sanguine. Obey looking fantastic. They're going to sneak away with another objective here, Dave. Sanguine caught with their pants down, man. Where are they at on these neutrals?
Agreed. No idea, and this is continued confidence in the way that Obey are playing. Maybe Sanguine accepting that the fight won't be in their favor. Wowie will have to crystal away. He'll stay alive this time. Small collapse there from Sanguine. You'd hope that you lose the Pyro on one side, you can get a kill on the other with a numbers advantage, but not to be. Obey Alliance playing smart enough to keep everyone alive here so far in this fight. I think everyone has had a much better early game, I think, from Obey Mifflin. Sino as well, though. Remember, we saw him put early pressure here in Game 2, and he's continued to do so. I won't say this game has revolved around him in the way some of the Obey games have, but at 0-2-4, affecting just over half the kills. Icavale first item on this Erlong Shen, he's making it work.
Icavale, Reinforced Greaves, Wingblade. This is an interesting, very Sino build. This is just him doing what he does best. I like what it's going to bring to the team. He's going to be able to close the gap very easily towards just about anyone he wants. If Shinto makes it out, turn into a ferret, all of a sudden you're there immediately. And this is exactly what he's been doing all game. Sino is just trying to be annoying, stripping farm where he can, and Panatom's feeling the punishment.
Yeah, Sanguine have been on the back foot for most of this early game. Look at the cleanse and then the taunt back in from Sino. There's a moment there where maybe there's some setup for Obey Alliance. He's been on point with the cleanses so far. And that's important, Miff. I mean, you say Hell has this cleanse, but timing it is so important, difficult to do, especially when there's enough that your eyes go towards that Sanguine can have. Do you save it for the stun from Rongyu, Shinto's ultimate? Netrioid has the stun there as well. There's a lot of number crunching that has to happen in that moment for Wolfie.
Yeah, much easier said than done to get the full value out of the cleanse from Hell, but so far been doing a very good job of it. If Sanguine want to maybe deal with that ever so slightly, they need to find a multi-man CC, and that CC is going to also have to incorporate Wolfie. If he's left free, he's going to cleanse anyone just about at any time. Sanguine are going to pick their fights very wisely, and they need to start it on the Hell.
Well, Hell luckily has some healing to keep herself in some of these fights, and it's going to be important for Wolfie. He has the beads, doesn't go for an Aegis, doesn't go for a Shell, instead Phantom for the rest of his team. One of those forms of CC you can't beads out is Rongyu and his wall, so Phantom maybe in that regard will help Wolfie out, but Myth, maybe you're giving something up in that second relic slot. Do you like the way Wolfie's gone?
It's very confident. It means that he thinks he's going to be alive to the last in these engagements.
He has been.
He needs to be around his team at all times as well. And with his build so far, it seems like that's going to be the strategy. Mantle of Discord coming through in that third item slot. He's going to have a lot of tankiness. It's going to be very hard to lock him down. Loki, whose main job is to shut down Wolfie, is going to have a very hard time. The CC immunity from Mantle as well as the stun should be enough to kill him off.
Panatom Brawler's beat stick with his first item, so more anti-heal, more important. I think is the Sanguine mindset here. Things have slowed down early and often. We saw Obey getting aggressive. 4-0-3 for Wolfie has been the story of the game so far, affecting 100% of the kills. You see this slowdown though, Myth. No jungle objectives to fight over at the moment outside of stripping away a little farm here, a little farm there. Gotta look towards that Pyro, that'll be up here shortly, and then 45 seconds on the Fury. Maybe, you hope you see Sanguine start to contest some of those objectives.
If Sanguine doesn't show up to this next gold period, I know Obey will. They're going to be there as soon as it spawns if I've got my way about it. If Sanguine doesn't show up, they're going to fall, what, 4,000 gold behind at the 15-minute mark? That is too much. That's stifling at this point. I want to see Sanguine be a little bit more proactive on the map. They're allowing Obey, and that's the right word, they're allowing Obey to run away with it.
Absolutely, and now it's time for Sanguine to show us that that's not the case. With 15 seconds left on the Fury, you gotta like the Obey mindset here. Let's see if we can find a fight and make the objective easier for ourselves in just a moment. Netrioid pinned in, the spear is used, inbound just wide. with the pluck there. Desert Fury was waiting on the other side anyway. Inbound, half HP, cleanse used. Sino now walled off. Oh, the three-man taunt! But nobody from Obey Alliance is there to do any damage. Ducky blinks over the wall, but he's all alone. It's one man after the other, in and out for Obey Alliance, and Sanguine now maybe have the utility to turn this fight around. Inbound walled in once more. He'll use his ultimate now defensively. Some individually great plays. Not all together, though, and therefore no kills.
Maybe a little bit too scared is Wolfie as he uses the Phantom on the escape, but Obey have the additional healing to keep him in these fights.
Uh-oh, another wall, another stun, and Inbound is locked into place, but again, there's no damage from Sanguine. Ducky playing Separator to double knock up from Inbound, Cavalry charge in, Obey Alliance, they're just buying some time. It's the Primal Fury that gets taken away. Can you survive those? Stygian pulls in too, Obey Alliance suddenly a bit caught out. Inbound will finally die, and it's Shinto who picks up the kill. Can Obey Alliance get out with the other 4? For the moment, the answer is yes.
1 for gold, still worth for Obey, but a 4-man TKO and a 1-man Shrew KO. Sanguine's healthy. They might be moving in towards the Fire Giant here. They've got a lot of space to work with, but instead, it's going to be that Tier 1 tower. It's going to give Obey plenty of time to regroup.
It's so important. I mean, it's just 1 kill, but it's important that you finally get that one for Sanguine because it allows you to do this. Now you have still some of that health, some of that ability to rotate back, grab the Pyromancer, shrink this gold lead down just a little bit. Not all the way, but to your point, Miff, it saves it from being 4,000 or 5,000 in the advantage for Obey Alliance, and Sanguine keep things somewhat respectable here in this moment. Shinto, very safe in game number 1. Hasn't been as safe here in game 2 of the 7 kills that Obey have. A couple of them have fallen on the mid laner for Sanguine.
He's been the priority target, it seems. Every time Sino's going in with a taunt, he's looking for Shinto. Every single time Ducky blinks, he's blinking on Shinto. That's who they want to kill immediately, and after that, everything else is a forethought. If we need to peel off Dark War or Panatom, we can absolutely do that. Sanguine, on the other hand, have their eyes set onto Wolfie. It's not been easy to close the gap to him because of the CC immunity from Thieves, as well as the cleanse, and now a Phantom as well to deal with these Ymir walls. I think Wolfie, he might approach nigh unkillable status. 4-0-3 is his slash line, 18 minutes in the game. If you don't kill Hell in the early game, when are you going to do it?
I think you do have to give credit to Shinto, Mifflin. I mean, that's a totally fair point. So difficult to kill off Wolfie, and for that reason, I'm surprised that Shinto not only sits atop the net worth chart, only a couple hundred gold over his mid lane counterpart, but a level ahead of this Hell as well, where Shinto has been involved in half as many kills. He's been able to farm up, keep himself relevant in this game, and that's going to be ever so important in finding Sanguine an advantage. 1 level lead for Yarkor over Ducky as well, and we've already seen the Double Guardian and the ability for that composition to engage. Big Cerberus ult in the previous fight to give Sanguine a fighting chance.
You know, I think this XP and gold shift that we're seeing in Sanguine's favor might be a byproduct of the strategy that Obey has brought. They're remaining grouped for the majority of the game. Sanguine was playing the farming phase pretty standard. Leave Netrioid alone in the long, leave the soul laner alone as well. But Obey has been 4-man grouped since the 10-minute mark.
Inbound will be walled off, double walled off, I suppose. Pillar and a wall, but luckily he won't be under all that much pressure. Ducky will have to ult away here. Panatom will re-engage, drop a little bit of damage there. So a couple members of Obey Alliance taken down to half HP. This one will result just in a blue buff invade, so small bits of gold starting to transfer back over to Sanguine. No Fury here, but now maybe sensing a numbers advantage. Inbound is going to walk his way forward. He'll eat the stun, but Sanguine are able to walk away.
Are, but what is Sanguine going to do at this time? Both Sanguine and Obey are kind of spinning their wheels right now, trying to figure out where they want to go, when this next objective is going to really rear its head. I'm imagining it's likely going to be around this Gold Fury that we see the next fight, about 1 minute and 30 out from now. And Obey, they have the tools to win these elongated fights, but we got to see some cracks in the armor there in that last engagement around the Tier 2 tower of Sanguine. Obey hits a 3-man taunt. What's the follow-up? There was none. They find a fantastic wall. Still no follow-up as well. I want to see Obey stay grouped even tighter than we're seeing now, because that's where they're going to find the majority of their value. Cleanse works as an AoE when you're grouped up.
Or you absolutely have to play that way if you're Obey Alliance here. The next minute is where things get interesting, because both Pyro, well, a little bit behind the Fury that'll be respawning here, Gold Fury, in just a moment. Remember, Obey Alliance went fishing for a fight before the previous Fury. Were able to find a small skirmish, but it was really buying time on the back end of that fight. There were no kills. Remember, the 3-man taunt that you bring up, Sanguine were just put on the back foot. Obey Alliance are saying, yeah, if we get some kills here, it's great, but really we're this new objective mindset team, and that's where Obey rather have fallen short elsewhere so far in Season 7. I think if you're an Obey fan or somebody who's rooting for this team, you've got to be happy with some of the adjustments they've made, particularly around some of the objectives.
Yeah, their mid game is looking much stronger. Their objective game as well, as you highlighted, but now Ducky, a little bit far forward, might lose a little bit more than he's willing to.
And a half HP on Ducky once again. He'll receive just a little bit of healing here. Sanguine, don't want to scoff at though. It's now shrunk down to about a 1,000 gold lead, just passively as the game has gone on. Blue buff invades, farm being pulled away, jungle invades, little things like that have kept Sanguine relevant in this game, and that's exactly what you expect from a team of this caliber. Gold Fury has just now respawned. You start to see this big sweeping rotation over to the left-hand side of the map. This will be our first great look at a 5-on-5 fight. Obey Alliance will start things up here. Oracle's in Obey's favor. Half HP now on the Fury. Rongyu on in. Ultimate triggered, but nobody detonated. The Ymir having to waddle his way away, but he's got no health. Inbound finally finishes off the kill there. Wowie with the ultimate, but gets shrugged off. Sino has another as well. Obey Alliance currently stand at a 2-for-1, but it's a 2-for-2 as Sanguine will pull back another. Health bar shrinking. Inbound will not survive. Shinto with a double kill. The Persephone finds the space, and Sanguine make him pay.
What a split engagement. Obey take a 3v3 and a 2v2, but as they are the healer comp, they want to stay grouped. They want to make use of the sustain that they have, and Sanguine punish them perfectly for de-grouping. A 3-for-2 in favor of Sanguine, as well as the Gold Fury. All of a sudden, that gold lead that Obey had for the entirety of this match is gone.
Ducky is blinked back in here. Yarkor has to leap away. Watch out, Shinto's still full HP right around the corner. Another Bitcoin-esque graph, this time over in the XP area, 3,500 over for Sanguine, and that's going to be a big difference maker here. Mifflin, look at that. Yarkor takes over to level 20. Shinto does as well. And now you're starting to see what we were concerned about. We're thinking, all right, you pick this hell, yeah, maybe it's a counter pick over to that Persephone. The value has just not been there. I'm not hanging everything on Wolfie here. Wolfie's had a fantastic game. He's 4-0-5 for God's sakes. I don't think you can hang anything on him. But Shinto has just had too much space to operate.
Yeah, if Shinto's hitting a 3-4-man ult every single engagement, it's no surprise that Sanguine have been able to win them out, but Obey start the Fire Giant. Sanguine, they're wise to it.
What a gutsy call here from Obey. FG down beneath a half HP, taunted in. Obey Alliance are able to take away the FG this time, but Sanguine, they want blood. They want to fight on the back end of things here. Look at Rongyu working his way forward. Panatom is in, onto the back line. Wowie is connected onto his ultimate. On to Panatom, but Yarkor now has a double kill out of the solo lane. Sanguine, they lose the FG, but they're winning this fight. Obey Alliance have to walk away.
Rongyu is simply built different, Dave. He is finding walls and walls and walls. Build them up wherever they want, because he is stopping Obey in their tracks every single time. One Phantom may not have been enough. 3 members dead for 30 seconds. Sanguine, they got their eyes on the bird.
And it is probably looking a little bit nervous right now, that mid lane Phoenix is. As Sanguine, 5 members strong, can work their way down mid, but there are plenty of towers still to be taken, and that's kind of worst case scenario here, isn't it, for Obey? It could be worse if you lost that Fire Giant, but an interesting call there, but there's still so much gold left on the map. Now tier 2 tower in mid and right taken away, still a lot of gold sitting in towers on the left-hand side of the map as well. Sanguine, Mifflin, they pull 7,000 gold in the lead here. Obey Alliance, their eyes have to be on the defense.
It's a tough defense, but they have the tools for it. That sustain that they have is going to be very nice, making sure that they don't have to go back to base. It's going to make it much easier to defend their last tier 2, unless Sino gets caught out.
Does, but the beads last long enough that will not pull the Erlong Shen back in. That's all Yarkor, man, and this is what we talked about early on in this game, is how this Cerberus, with a little bit of damage built into that kit, Void Stone, Spear of the Magus, I'm looking at you, you can make even some slightly tankier members of Obey Alliance nervous.
I mean, Yarkor did, what, 80% of Sino's health there on his own, and that's not even with hitting the stun properly. Clearly, Cerberus is going to be chunky in these team fights, but look at Obey's positioning. They still want to fight despite the deficit.
Yeah, there's confidence, and then there's insanity, I suppose, for Obey Alliance. You're at a big deficit here, fellas, but that deficit doesn't concern you if you can play these fights well enough. Inbound will dash away. You're probably just looking for a pick there in that moment, but what Obey Alliance didn't realize is Sanguine brought the reinforcements. A 5v5 lurking off to the side. Sino Taunts the R4 back in. The Cerberus down to half HP now, but Ducky could say the same for him. The hell healing for the moment, just enough, but Netrioid, Desert Fury rips through to a double kill for the Sanguine Hunter, and now Sanguine start to steamroll. Obey Alliance double, locked in by the wall from Wrongu. It's a good tail whip though from Inbound to slow down this fight. The support has bought enough time for his mid and his Hunter to get away.
This is the second game in a row where Obey falls behind in the true late game and go for the Hail Mary fight and immediately get punished for it. Ducky finds a fantastic stun off the cavalry charge onto Netrioid, but the fight was so split. Sino and Inbound essentially on their own in the jungle. Wolfie too far back to deal damage, and no one's able to follow up. Ducky, left high and dry, immediately falls, and now Sanguine, they're knocking on the door of the base.
Yeah, there's maybe a chance. Starting to look towards game here. Not at the moment though. No Phoenix is down. Still 10 seconds or so on both Ducky and Sino. And that's pretty telling there, Mifflin. I mean, both of the immediate engage there between Ducky and Sino are the two who end up dying. So you got to give credit, I think, to a lot of the peel that Sanguine has been able to find. Remember, Shinto, I mean, it was hard to keep up with Wolfie 405 a moment ago on this hell. Shinto has not only kept pace as far as KDA goes, look at the player damage. He is knocking on the door of 25,000 yet again. Wolfie, yeah, you've got a lot of kills. You're down in the bottom half at 8,500 player damage.
Well, I'm sure he's probably got like however 16,000 healing to make up for that damage
Yeah, I
deficit,
guess.
right? I'm sure Wolfie's doing just fine, but Sanguine, man, and Wrongu in particular, I think I might be a support fanboy with how today's been
13,000.
going. This Ymir has been absolutely ridiculous. He's able to split up these team fights. He's engaging the fights as well. He's making very smart use of the wall to burn away the Phantom and then re-engage. Sanguine are showing us shades of what we saw in Phase 1. These guys are nasty in the late game team fight.
It's all about what version of your team shows up to Worlds Week, and Sanguine are looking very strong right now. This is going to be a free fury over to Sanguine. And maybe this shows you, obviously we're wondering where Sanguine were around some of these objectives early on in this game. Maybe Sanguine realized, all right, we have this composition that's really going to start to sting against what Obey have. We don't have to go all out for a fight around these objectives just yet. And that lead has absolutely ballooned to about 11,000. Sanguine did a great job of buying their time here in Game 2.
Look, if that call is correct, Dave, if you've got a good read on their mentality, that's one of the ballsiest plays ever as Bobby gets caught out by a wall.
Oh, that's a dead inbound. Netrioid with the free kill there, but Obey Alliance want to go back in. Obey Alliance choose to re-engage here on this fight. Wowie and Wolfie, they're left alone in the back. Sanguine running them down. Netrioid another double kill. The multi-kill kid here in game number 2. Sanguine starting to put the icing on the cake. Shinto will get Wowie. A deicide just hanging around the corner. Yarkor's in on the chase. Ducky will pull back one, but Sanguine, massive fight.
And they should be able to barrel on down towards the base. Obey, split up. Bobby, too far forward. Sanguine aren't going to let that go for free. Only 3 members, so let's see what the decision is. It's going to be Fire Giant. Sanguine not going to go for the risky play. No minion waves pushed up. Instead, let's get the objective. Let's wait it out. Obey's dead for a long time. Sanguine might be willing to wait for their teammates to respond.
Myth, how silver of a lining is the fact that Sanguine can't end the game. Obey Alliance have 4 out of 5 members at level 20. It's only Inbound who's left behind here. It's gonna be Fire Giant on majority of Sanguine here. We'll see if they wait the next 15 or so seconds for their teammates to come by. Actually, could get risky. Inbound's
on the
close
way.
by. The Sanguine have to know this. The moment they see Inbound, they've got to turn around and secure the objective. The wall off Stygian Torment against Inbound. Can Inbound make his way over the wall? The respawns are through. Sanguine
That was
take down the
nuts!
FG. So close. What a play from Wrongu and Yarkorn. Way to go, Sanguine. You bought yourself enough time.
Dave, the discipline that I just saw,
I'm turning around and
believe
securing
me,
it, dude. I'm
when
taking
my
it.
jaw is dropped right now, Sanguine, keep Bobby at a stiff arm, hold him back, and take the Fire Giant for all 5. That is a disciplined play. And now they're primed for just whatever they want. 5 members of Fire, crazy.
No chance. I'm turning around and auto-attacking the Fire Giant once. The moment I
too.
see Inbound, you even heard it in my call. I'm thinking Inbound's about to be here. No way. They leave this one up. But Sanguine are happy enough to burn the Arcor ult. Wrongu uses his ult there as well. And why not? You can go back to base. You can regroup. Those ults are already at three quarters of the way back to charged up. Sanguine poised now. And important. I mean, you look at the fact that Netrioid was able to get that FG buff on himself as well. That's going to make sieging a lot easier for the Sanguine team. Great play.
I'm floored, Dave. I really am. That was phenomenal. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that happen in Smite. Just
And
keeping someone
Emperor's
at bay
armor.
like
So
that.
siege is the mindset here, Myth. Rongyu picks up something to help out with a little bit of base siege.
Yeah, Rongyu just doing everything he can for his team now. So how is Sanguine going to approach this? Are they going to move in on the left side? It seems like it's going to be a 3-2 split. Maybe Loki, Panatom playing as a floater and moving through here. I mean, Obey are going to have to play nearly perfect if they want to reflect this push. We're looking at 13,000 gold, Fire Giant on 5, all relics available. Sanguine looking good.
Myth, Obey Alliance have had those moments, but how consistently can you find them? The time is now, Obey. You have to defend your left side Phoenix. Attack 1 is repelled, but Sanguine weren't going for the throat just yet. They whittled away about half of the HP bar on that left side Phoenix. Yarkor hovering over in the mid lane there as well. Obey Alliance are going to have to respond to one push or the other, but Yarkor has been near impossible to deal with throughout the course of this game here, Mifflin. The engage just needs to come from Sanguine, and this game is in your back pocket, and you're one game away from moving on to the next stage of Worlds. Inbound, before the fight has even started, has no more HP, and now Wowie, you can say the same for him as well. The Crystal will save Heimdall's life for the time being. Left side Phoenix ends up going down, but how about the Stygian Torment? Inbound, off to the side, Panatom picks up one. Sanguine finally crack open the base.
They're still 4 strong. Obey can put up a defense. Only Wowie's ultimate available to him.
Sino right back in, but look at how much damage he's taken. In the meantime, Sanguine still all 5, still with the FG buff. Down goes Wowie. They smell blood in the water. The Titans under attack. Sanguine disapparate the Obey Alliance roster. Sanguine win game 2.
And in a convincing way, Dave, not often can you give up every single objective on the map and then simultaneously farm them in their fountain. Just 10 minutes later, Sino getting a little bit bullied here by Netrioid. A crazy turnaround. Sanguine, man. And Rongyu in particular. I'm not going to make any qualms about saying his name. This guy is nuts.
The confidence there, I don't know if you call that BM at the end of the game there, Mifflin, but Sanguine, they draw things out a little bit. You're trying to get that final kill in the fountain. That's the confidence you saw from Sanguine. I think you go back to game 1 even here in game 2. The way that Sanguine was able to roar back into this game, worrying trend. Obey Alliance, massive early game lead, lots of kills on Wolfie, can't do anything with it.
Dave, this is twice now that I'm going to have to correct you. You've said confidence too many times. This is disrespect.
Disrespect?
I,
All right.
I don't know
Look,
if you
it's two
heard what
different
Shito
mindsets.
said earlier on. I'm reading Sanguine's mindset. They farmed them in their fountain at the Smite World Championship,
They did.
Dave. Crazy. They put up a Fire Giant steal at risk just because they felt like it to get it on 2 more members. Sanguine clearly doesn't respect Obey.
Here's the difference. I said maybe Obey are somewhat happy with their performance in game 1. There's no chance you feel good after the way game 2 went. The cards were on your side. They're on your side of the table. You had pocket aces 2 minutes into that game, and Obey Alliance still can't close out game number 2. Sanguine, go 2 up here in this set. Quick break. Game 3 after that.
Welcome back to the hi-rez production studios, everybody, as Game 2 is a decisive Sanguine victory. Aggro and Gormizer still here running you through set number 2 here on the day of the SMITE World Championship. But before we get in to this dominant Sanguine victory, we want to tell you briefly about how we've partnered up with our friends at SteelSeries to bring you some exclusive SMITE merchandise that you can get your hands on. SteelSeries.com is the place to go. Make sure you're treating yourself and your friends this holiday season with a limited edition SMITE mousepad and speaker plate. Again, that's SteelSeries.com. Make sure you want to be gaming in style, and SteelSeries can help you do that better than just about anybody. Gormizer, going into game number 2, it looked good for Obey early.
Yeah.
Wolfie rotates over to duo lane early. Triple kill for the hell. 11 minutes in, Wolfie was 4-0-3. And at that point, look, it's a lot to ask of players to carry games, especially at this level. It realistically doesn't happen that often. But if you want to win a world championship, you've got to be able to do things like get a lead and carry a game for your team.
And
4-0-3
yeah,
was the scoreline at that
Yeah,
point.
go
Wolfie
ahead,
ends the
hit
game.
me.
Yeah, he ends the game 4-3-6.
yeah, 0-3-3 from 11 minutes to the end. This game went on a distance. Like that's not what you need to have happen. I mean, it was a triple kill at the very beginning, so maybe bloated, at least you could maybe call it in the kills. Gets a lot early on, doesn't have as much of the transitions. And I'm interested to see what his healing numbers are, because that's maybe going to help, but like you said, 0-3-3 as time continues going on. And I will give Obey credit. They've extended that 15 minutes into like 20 minutes, 23 minutes, I think was
Getting
this game.
better.
They go for that Fire Giant. And that Fire Giant call on paper looks great. It
great.
looks like they're going to be able to come through. They burn it obnoxiously fast, honestly, and it looks like it'll make a big difference. And then it doesn't. They lose 3 people immediately after they get it. It doesn't even last a full minute before they lose that fight. And then as time goes on, they're taking scraps away from Sanguine. They're never outright losing to them, but you can see the fights slowly falling through their fingers, like sand dripping out of it. Like they just did not have a grip on it. It was nothing to hold on to.
Really, really difficult game there from Obey because, look, you've got to have that potential to make those plays. And I feel like they did it with the Fire Giant call, and they go in afterwards instead of disengaging, which is a head-scratcher. And then the most toxic moment of the World Championship, in my mind, is going to be Sanguine waiting for 2 members on the Fire Giant for them to respawn so they can kill the FG. Inbound shows up, and they go, yeah, we don't really care about this. Wall you off. Cerberus ult you away. We're still going to wait the extra 5 seconds.
Yeah, they did not care about his presence there. And honestly, that was just true of the last half of that game. It felt like there were several times where it'd be like a fight would start off typically with Inbound dying either out of position or maybe he got aggressive and his team didn't quite follow up as quickly as they thought. And so things would fall apart from there. And because they kept it going that way, unfortunately, Obey just never had that opportunity to find any, I want to say, return kills. They never found the big fight to turn it around because every time they were starting at a deficit.
Look, Yarkor played lights out on that Cerberus. He played so well, but I think that this is exactly the right thing to do by Obey Alliance. Take away that Persephone. Shinto has done insane amounts of damage in both games. You've got to take it out of his hands at some point. Now, 2 out of the 3 bans here by Obey Alliance dedicated towards Shinto in that mid lane, kind of as we expect, is Yamoja, Ra, and Cupid the bans for Sanguine. That leaves open the Guan Yu once again for Ducky.
Look, last time it was Guan Yu, Persephone, and Ymir. I don't know. Well, I know at least Persephone isn't going to be there, but the Ymir, it's been good for Sanguine. Like, there's no reason to go away from it. If you're going to keep picking into him and in his favor, it's not worrisome if you're Sanguine here. And because they've had to ban away, again, now 2 Shinto gods, maybe 3 if you want to throw out the fact that we've seen the set go mid more often than not, you're really, maybe putting your foot down there in mid lane. But that dual lane is scarier. That ROM that has been coming through, it looked deadly. I think it was in game 1. Makes sense that it's going to be the return here in game 3.
We are blazing through picks and bans here in game number 3 as Obey says it's time to just go all in with a slightly different strategy. Baron Samdi is their pick, and we've seen this a little bit. Sanguine played it up against Renegades, if memory serves, and did not look particularly good for them in the mid lane whenever we saw it at Phase 2 playoffs. But Baron getting a lot more play in ranked these days. We've seen him more in the mid lane. I'm a little bit concerned, though, because Ymir and Hell are 2 matchups that I don't really love if I'm Baron. The cleanse is problematic for you, and the Ymir can easily put a wall between your coffin and whoever you're trying to pull in and really take a lot of the damage off that ult.
And it's fun because he can flex around, right? We've seen him go solo. We've seen him play support. I think it'd be fun to watch if Obey can toy around with that. But as of right now, it does feel very mid-laney, and like you said, it doesn't feel good in the mid lane right now. I think his kit is going to still be a boon to Obey, but Sanguine have enough to answer it that they're not too stressed out about it. And the fact, again, that they get this Hell, a healer now on top of it, like, I'm worried about Shinto in pretty much any circumstance under any god he has, but now you're giving him what most people would argue is the best mid lane god in the game, depending on whose hands it's in. And I would say right here, this is a top 3 for Sanguine that it could very well make it the last game because of it.
Difficult position now for Obey as they take away 2 of Yarkor's signature picks in King Arthur and Cucullin, and now he's only got Amaterasu and Cerberus and a whole bunch of other stuff that he can beat you with, it feels like. over there in that solo lane. Sanguine continue to ban out Inbound's Godpool, Khepri, and Sobek, their bans this time around, as we hit the brakes on this picks and ban segment, which has been flying up until this point, as Sanguine really thinks about where they want to go. This is the spot where they took Loki last time, Gore, and with one appearance in Season 7 competitive, Loki is now 1-0.
And, yeah, has the highest, I think, win rate that we would have. There was one other god that was picked once that has a 100% win rate. All I can tell you is I know it wasn't Shock. And it's just interesting to see as they come through, because this is what was interesting, I want to say, in Game 2 was the focus kind of switch. There's a little bit of Shinto targeting, a little bit over there for Yarkor, but Panatom still had 1 to 2 gods that are getting banned out. The set flexible for him as well. And the fact that they don't feel as though Panatom himself is a threat does unnerve me a little bit, because I feel like him and Rongyu, as well as Yarkor, are the 3 kind of pillars that hold up what makes Sanguine so great. You always see Shinto and Netrioid have stellar performances, but I feel like if Panatom's not showing up on one set, or Rongyu, or you see Yarkor fall apart, then the rest of the team doesn't get as much under their belt. So the fact that he's able to kind of just run whatever he wants and he's happy about it is maybe not a good sign for Obey.
Obey looking to go back towards that Game 1 composition potentially here with Naja and Athena as the hovers. Naja with Baron does not feel like that burst image that we typically see with this pick, and same with Athena. When you think of Athena and with Naja, I think of big mage burst damage that's going to really punish whoever gets hit by those CCs. Neither Baron doesn't really fill that role, and you've got a cleanse on the other side you've still got to worry about for these very important CCs.
And I think not only the cleanse for the CCs, but the same problem that Game 1 had, well, that Game 2 had, it seems to be here for Game 3,
yeah, that's a good point.
Which is that if I put a wall right here and you're on this side, you're not you can't jump over it, there's no going through it. They had to have a Phantom on the Hell last game to try and deal with it. And admittedly didn't use it at some of the best times. There was one that you looked up and like 5 seconds later you were like, man, I wish that one was the one I had the Phantom for, because they're just getting caught out in these moments. And so, yes, maybe you can deal with the walls that way, but the stuns on top of it, the healing beside it, I feel like if you go for a Phantom here, you're stripping away either an Aegis, you're stripping away a Cursed Ankh, or something else that would be helpful for your team. And there's too many relics you need on Obey. This could be the draft that turns it around, but there's too much flavor of Game 1 in it for me to really back it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Sanguine's composition, and it's typical Sanguine. It's well-balanced. They all work well alone. They all work well together. These are just 5 gods that are undeniably strong in their roles right now that also seem to work together pretty fairly well. On Obey's side, I don't see a lot of unity in this composition, Gormizer. They seem to all be trying to do slightly different things.
Yeah, it feels as though, again, maybe their idea is who can carry, where can we put them? Like, Wowie, let's get you the Heimdall. Sino, we know you're good at Naja. Let's go ahead and get you on that. But it does seem to fall apart, right? Like, I mean, you have this taunt that can come through, a sash from Naja that can come through. Who's the follow-up? I mean, who's supposed to hit you? Like, where's the burst? Like, that's what Ra was in Game 1. Hey, if I taunt you, you can Searing Pain. If I sash him, you can Searing Pain. No matter what, something into Searing Pain. This time, hey, maybe Baron puts his crosshairs on you, and that could be damage, but it's not anywhere near the amount. I feel like they're just lacking that burst that comes through. They have a lot of tankiness, though, so maybe they're just planning to outlive Sanguine.
And they've got plenty of sustain between the Guan Yu and the Baron, and that would be the part of this composition that I would really hang my hat on if I were Obey. But here's the problem. Shinto has Hell on the other side, who has the highest healing that you can have. So I feel like that's a bit of a problem for them in this game, but we've seen Obey make things like this work in the past. This is, you know what, I kind of, as much as I dislike this composition as a whole, that gives me a little bit more comfort, because usually the compositions that Obey performs with are ones that I go, really? Is that what we're picking here? You know, like it's just that different sort of play style that other teams aren't doing.
And I guess it's in that credit, right? It's not only because it feels very Obey, but also, I mean, how many times do you think Sanguine's played against that kind of draft, right? Like, how often have you played against a Baron? How often have you been playing against a Naja and Athena? At least 3 of their picks aren't really considered meta. The Heimdall, the Guan Yu, those have been around at least the last couple of months, but I think these new-ish picks that are coming into it for Obey do give them that edge up. The problem is we saw that Sino's Naja didn't quite get off to the start that he wanted earlier. The same thing. This Athena, while it can do really well, requires that follow-up. So it always comes down to the one thing. Will your team fight do anything against Sanguine's team fight? Because that's where it needs to win. The first 15 minutes of each game, Obey have been in the lead. Sanguine have ripped it away from them when it matters most. And I'm looking at a Nike for late game, I'm looking at a Hell for late game, and I'm looking at a Rom for late game, let alone the fact that you've got a Serket for the anti-heal and the Ymir for the CC. I think this is just too much to handle. And Sanguine feel, like you had said, just 5 gods that are going to work really well together. I want Obey to surprise me here, but I'm trying to find the way in for him.
Man, Sanguine just follows a SMITE textbook. That's what they do. I mean, if you're looking to get into competitive with a couple of your buddies, watch how Sanguine plays together, watch how Sanguine drafts, because they aren't trying to hoodwink anybody. They're not trying to surprise anybody. They're just going to show up on the battleground of the gods, and they're going to beat you straight up. And let's see if they can do that 3 times in a row to Obey Alliance and move on here in the SMITE World Championships. Obey's SWC dreams hanging in the balance for game number 3.
Yeah, I don't know, Aggro. If you think you and your buddies can just get together and play as well as Sanguine do, I have some snake oil I'd love to sell you here. Game number 3 about to kick off between Sanguine and Obey. It's time to turn things around, Mifflin. It's got to be the full-on reverse sweep for Obey Alliance, and what a draft to try to do that with. They've maybe got some unity in the fact that they've got single target and potentially multi-target lockdown, depending on how those abilities hit. But do they have the damage to follow that up?
Dave, I've got the exact same concerns as Aggro, man. What's the best follow-up you have on Windfire Wheel? The heal from Baron Samdi. I mean, what's the best follow-up you have off Cavalry Charge? Maybe a Confound? It seems like Obey are going to be very reliant on winning out on the early game, because if this game goes late, maybe this match more so than any of the other 2 we've seen so far, Sanguine have a dominant draft.
But I think to Aggro's point as well, this is the type of Obey draft that surprises us when we're like, wow, this is, all right, that worked. It worked for them and they end up winning it. I think you have to give Obey benefit of the doubt in that these types of drafts can find them early leads, but if it's anything like we saw there in game 2, an early lead might not mean much. You can't transition it on into the late. So a big pivot here. Shinto not on Persephone for the first time here this set. Rangyu, though, remains on Ymir, and level 2 is reached. And as such, Inbound, damage down, shell used, and Inbound will survive. Sanguine duo lane continues to work.
Man, Rangyu, it has got to be some sort of issue with the Geneva Convention, truthfully. A violation, there's the word, that he's allowed to play this god 3 times in a row. This is the best Ymir play I think I've seen full stop ever. 7 years of playing SMITE. Rangyu is looking that good.
I agree, and it's a worrying trend. Let's say, not a foregone conclusion at this point, let's say Sanguine are able to win here this game. Your next matchup against another team whose duo lane has been looking very, very good in the Renegades. So, Sanguine absolutely happy in the way that things have gone here. Mifflin, and this is hard to do because Sino, I don't think has played poorly necessarily this set. You can maybe even make an argument for Panatom as well. Both junglers, I think, have been quiet and really making waves in the early game, and right now it's Panatom who wants to try to steal away some of that farm, or Sino rather, trying to invade around Panatom's side of the map. Maybe now here in game 3 is when we start to see the junglers make some noise in the early.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. It has been very quiet from both junglers this time around. I think Sanguine maybe more so due to planning, than Obey having to play a little bit more reactionary. I think Sanguine is a team that is very willing to let Shinto be alone for however long Shinto wants to be alone. I've seen Panatom walk all the way around his own back camp just so he doesn't accidentally steal 1 archer farm from Shinto.
Wow.
If that's the job there and Panatom's able to still remain afloat while allowing Shinto to free farm everything on his own, I think that's impressive in its own right.
I suppose you give some credit to Panatom here, and maybe the credit really falls for Rangyu and Netrioid. The abundance of duo lane gank opportunities hasn't quite been there just because there's been so much pressure. I mean, Inbound and WoW have effectively been pushed beneath their tier 1 tower for a while here. Wolfie just walked at by Panatom, and that's a good point there, Miff. You brought up the mid lane and maybe what Panatom can do there. Wolfie has to use his beads. That means re-gank opportunity in the next 150 seconds is absolutely there. Baron, not known for his mobility.
And that was just Circuit 2-1 damage there, and an auto attack that drops Wolfie down to 1/10 HP. Had Panatom been level 5, that's first blood easily, but with beads down, Baron Samdi being one of the most immobile mages in the game, he's going to have to play very safe for the near future.
You gotta hope those life of the parties, lifes of the party, I don't know how you pluralize that one, the ultimates from Wolfie out of the middle lane connect on some multi-target stuns here to set up for the rest of your team, because if the concern is that you don't have this initial follow-up damage on Sino, his lockdown, Ducky, inbound, Wowie, I suppose the idea is that you then just chain that CC on top of everyone, and eventually you let Wowie do a lot of the work. Baron is able to do a good bit of damage as well. Small fight in the jungle here. Sino connects onto the ultimate. Both junglers about the same in the health department, but Panatom has the leap, so he'll survive. Ducky lurking off to the side. Cavalry charge not ready to go. Halfway on its cooldown there, but just putting pressure, and Panatom will have to leave.
And there's that immobility on display from Wolfie. Had he been able to position aggressively in lane and walk around the dangerous way, he might have been there in time to follow up on that kill as Baron Samdi. That ult's tough.
Well, it's Rongu who's invited to the party this time and will use his ultimate. Oh my, the detonate damage, and Shinto there as well. Wolfie thought he had turned one quickly over onto Sanguine, but it's anything but. Now Shinto off to the races with a kill in his back pocket.
Rongu is styling, Dave. He's styling. There's no respect on the table here. He just hit 3 people with a full channel ult on their tower line at the 5-minute mark. He doesn't care. Pull me into your tower. I'll kill your whole team. Shinto finds first blood on Hell. That's a stolen pick as well. He's trying to show Obey how to play this pick.
Rongu's thinking, I'm walking that direction anyway. It's just going to be a little bit slower, I suppose, or maybe quicker if I follow your stun on in there. And then he just channels his ult and gets out of that one alive anyway. Well played by Rongu. The rotations begin now, so you expect Wowie and Netrioid to be left somewhat alone over there on the duo lane side of the map. Netrioid, one level in hand over his counterpart. This is almost a, you know, I can do one better. I know you can, but what can I don't know the phrase I'm looking for here. But Shinto picking up the Hell. Already you can see what some of that burst damage is able to do. And a lot of the net worth, the charts over there on the left side of your screen, 4,300 for Shinto. Wolfie has fallen behind 3,700 there, so 500-600 gold in a game. It's only about 1,000 apart. Half of it lies in the mid lane.
And is this the first game, if I'm correct here, that Sanguine started off with the lead? Almost every other match, Obey has been able to pull 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 gold up, maybe 2,000 at this point.
Key,
and then Sanguine
the
has
key.
to make the comeback. Maybe. Oh yeah, Obey's got him right where they want him right now.
Maybe that's the turnaround that Obey need. Remember though, and one big thing that's been in Obey's corner, outside of the early game leads, has been their calls, and again, maybe some of this through the early game leads that they've had, their calls around these objectives. It's been the Furies, the Pyromancers, kind of when Obey won. So that's something that maybe allows Obey to get back into this game. Not that they're out of it by any means. The gold lead relatively small here, but Sanguine very good at pushing leads in the way we see here. Life of the party immediately canceled out yet again by Rongu. No burst damage to follow up. Up over the wall goes Yarkor. But Obey Alliance do a good enough job at disengaging, but now Sino is here. Into the mid lane he goes. Rongu, no ultimate to stay alive. Good lockdown, but a wall is going to send Rongu right back on the other direction. Big Nike slow down from Yarkor, and the damage is there as well. Shinto with another. Will Rongu survive? No, he won't. Ducky able to pull one back now for Obey Alliance. Inbound rejoins the fray and picks up a kill for himself, but Yarkor adds another as well. Messy here in the mid lane. It's a 2 for 2.
Yarkor not willing to let it be that way. Gonna keep moving forward. Rom looks for the snipes. Wow, he makes it out by the skin of his teeth, but Sino goes back in.
Come on, you thought you might have gotten one. Oh, Sino playing with fire there, my friend. Yarkor is able to be sustained up just a little bit extra by Shinto here. Mifflin, maybe that is best case scenario for Obey Alliance. You're down 1 kill. Big skirmishy fight there in the mid lane, and it ends up falling a 2 for 2.
Completely agree, Dave. It's crazy to me that Sanguine was able to live so long in that fight. Rongu starts that fight by taking 3 tower shots immediately in mid, walks away, and then lives for about 40 uninterrupted seconds as Ducky is forced into using a one-man cavalry charge. Shinto, boom, in the middle of the map. Be careful.
Got no mana here. There's a little bit of the burst damage that this Baron can provide. Wolfie sidestepping the stun there, but luckily Shinto, though he doesn't have any mana, is able to walk his way away. Umorb looks like the first item, or will be the first item rather, for both of these mid laners here. That's kind kind of been the trend here, Miff. This do-morph start in the mid lane has kind of transcended any type of mage, any specific god. It just seems like the standard.
145 power, MP5, and movement speed. Find me a god that doesn't want all that. Do-morph, one of the best stat sticks in the game right now. But take a peek at Rongyu's build. I think we're going to get a nice heat check on how confident or cocky or arrogant or just hateful, conceited, whatever you want to say, he's feeling based on what he picks up here. Could be the Stone of Binding, that's a little bit more standard, but if he wants to put on the carry shoes and just vibe on these kids, that might be a void.
Yeah, the competitor in you is absolutely showing here, Mifflin, and some of your word choice there, the disrespect. There's a Stone of Binding instead. Maybe,
he wants to win.
Maybe you're right. He wants to win. He's choosing not to lose, right? I mean, if he picked Void Stone, he would have been electing to lose there, but instead, I'd like to win and move on to the next round, please. Stone of Binding, though, great at providing good setup and a little extra damage on whatever target Rongyu is able to find, and it's been early and often that he's found him.
Yeah, but he's always finding him inside the Tier 1 tower of Obey Alliance. I think that's where every single freeze has been. Yeah, I think if Sanguine wants to, maybe just group up on an objective if you're so keen to fight. And it looks like Netrioid was thinking about for a moment rotating towards the center of the map, but both teams going to return back to farming here as Sanguine have a pretty commanding lead 10 minutes in.
Sanguine feeling comfortable with the ways that things are going here. Yarkor, big difference maker in that last fight. Ducky was as well. Once the Guan Yu joined in, I think he did.
Uh-oh.
It's got dangerous, but now it's a cavalry charge used defensively. I suppose Ducky will take that. Inbound has to use his ultimate, though. Rejoin on in, and now it's Sanguine. This is where, remember, game 2 started to get pulled away from Obey. It's when Sanguine were able to find these moments, the small invades, the jungle farm, that kept the gold flowing into the Sanguine pockets. They're doing it this time, though, with Elite.
They are, and they're controlling the map so masterfully. It's making it that much harder for Obey to look for that objective-focused style that they were leveraging in game 1 and 2. Not that their composition is even the best at it as Panatom goes in.
Panatom does so much damage. We've been reminded again, Netrioid elsewhere gets a kill. Onto Sino. Wolfie has to use his ultimate and his beads to stay alive here, I imagine. We'll see what happened with Netrioid over there. I guess Sino had rotated over to that side of the map, and Netrioid still has his ult, so he picked up a kill.
Sanguine has fully abandoned the eloquent style that they are known for, the late game team fight. Instead, it's divide and conquer tactics. They're throwing wild haymakers left and right, and they're landing everywhere on the map. Netrioid finds the kill on a Sino, which opens up Sanguine to a free gold free here. Obey, they know better. They can't step up. Sanguine's gold lead is ballooning.
Yeah, we still think Obey have him right where we want him, I guess.
Yes, sir.
That's right. This is turnaround time for Obey Alliance. 3,000 gold is the deficit, 11 minutes in. And with the way things are going, it's hard to find a silver lining. Remember, consistently we could say, all right, we see Sanguine shrinking down this lead. Again, it was the invades, the small fights, the one for none that Sanguine were able to find. Here's what happens with Netrioid. I thought it was a 1 versus 1, and there was mostly setup elsewhere on the map. It's actually just the auto attack down. So it was totally Netrioid. You know, the Hunter did all the work there, but it is a kill in his back pocket nonetheless. And you know, bit of an overextension there from Obey Alliance. Uncharacteristic mistake from Sino.
Shinto, here, not going to be able to stick around for the defense if Obey elect to stay, but they do not. They think better of it. With the Gold Fury being down, no neutral objective really to fight over outside of Pyromancer. I think that we're going to see both teams go back to farming for a little bit, and I've said this so many times throughout Phase 1, Phase 2. The team that goes back to farming and has the lead is going to be at an advantage if they have a healer. Which team's got the healer this time around? Shinto on a Hell, 2-0, and going into a Bruiser build as well. It's going to be hard to shut this man down.
Where do we put Baron Samdi in the healer conversation?
We don't.
We don't? That's all right, fair enough. Quick and easy on that answer. Now it's Ducky, who's got Sanguine rotating over towards his side of the map. Rongyu has the wall awaiting. It won't be needed as Ducky pop his heal. Safely live underneath the Tier 1 tower. This is a good call from Obey Alliance. They see a big rotation from Sanguine over to the right-hand side. They'll answer with a red buff invade, but this is where things get messy. Sanguine now able to work their way over by the Pyromancer. Obey Alliance not able to answer in kind, except for a few more jungle camps that get pulled away. Sanguine take down the Pyro.
But they haven't gone back to base yet. It's just Netrioid. I think Obey may have missed a small opportunity there. They don't have the aerial view like us, but they potentially could have gone for the Tier 2. Instead, going to settle for the Tier 1. Sino in a little bit of trouble. Going to back away into the jungle here. Sanguine strip away another neutral objective. We're rapidly approaching a 3.5k gold lead. 13 minutes into the game. This is dirty.
And I was curious, you can see the little notch downward, how all of that played out. It was a couple invades, a tier 1 tower goes down, Sanguine, they kind of fake a dive on a Ducky, get the Pyromancer, and there's actually a slight downtick in gold for Sanguine, and then maybe the tiniest uptick towards Obey. So really, all things considered, gold-wise, the cross-the-map plays there, the big trades don't necessarily benefit one team over the other, but the respawning objective and the Pyromancer are definitely helpful there for Sanguine. Tier 1 tower over in the right-hand side of the map is low for Obey. That's another chance for some gold for the Sanguine team should they choose a time and an opportunity to group up and re-engage. 2 minutes left on the Fury here, Mifflin, so it's kind of this dead space where maybe Obey can start to make some money, but Sanguine have to be wary of Sino over in the mid lane. Beads used by Shinto, and look at that, the Beads immediately into the walk forward, the re-engage, as Sanguine team's playing with some confidence.
Sino had to use his beats there as well, and with Gold Fury respawning so soon, I'm sure he's going to wish he had those available to him. But Sanguine, this 4-man grouping in the center of the map, it looks like they might be putting their focus on that tier 1 tower. If you're able to strip away the mid-tier 1, it opens up the entire map. Fire Giants would become easier. Gold Fury is going to become easier just to remove that bastion into safety for Obey Alliance. But right now, Sanguine kind of dispersing throughout, trying to pick up as much neutral farm as they can. It's going to be about a minute 30 till we see some action, I think.
Rongyu just off the mark with his wall. Inbound won't take that much damage. Instead, taunts one back in. Panatom joins the fight here. Executes Wolfie on down. Aegis was used, but it does not matter. Bye-bye, Baron. And Sanguine now on the chase. Yarkor slows everyone. Another kill infuses into Sanguine's back pocket. Ducky will cavalry charge away. Sanguine grab another couple.
They're making light work of it, Dave. I'm not going to mince words here. Sanguine are in control, and they've been in control. Tier 1 tower, that's falling here. Sino, no beads, has to play safe. Sanguine want the tier 2.
And this is the threat after a game like game 2, that it gets backbreaking. And we're in that territory right now. Sino is caught out. Shinto will pick up the kill, a killing spree now for the hell out of the mid lane. You wondered how Obey would respond to a loss like we saw in Game 2, and instead it seems like Sanguine are the ones with the response. They're doubling down on their strategy from the second game. They're going for a 16-minute Fire Giant.
Obey can't let this go. If Sanguine get Fire Giant here, that might be all she wrote. Ducky spots it out, he lets his team know, but it's going to be a slow rotation. Look at Wowie on the opposite side of the map.
Ducky thought he had done something here, but instead he is just going to get taken down by Netrioid. Now the collapse can occur from Sanguine. The FG was just a bait. Still might happen in a moment. Wolfie, life of the party, but he's the only one invited. Yarkor picks up that one. Sanguine are all going to regroup, make their way back towards the FG with a couple extra kills.
Couple extra kills, 30 seconds left on respawns. Obey now, they're going to feel it sinking in their heart. They know that Fire Giant's likely going to go their way, but Sino puts on his cape. He wants to steal.
The only thing he's stealing is a little bit of extra time alive. Rongyu will get the kill, and now Inbound is as well. Obey Alliance. Not decided. Wowie just respawned, but the Fire Giant will make another kill here for Sanguine. We've seen them kind of dice around with Inbound getting close by there in Game 2. Nobody from Obey Alliance will be able to steal this one away, and now Sanguine a firm grasp on Game 3 in the next round of the SWC.
Man, Wowie has been absent from every single engagement. 0-2. I'm pretty sure Sino died twice trying to keep that Fire Giant alive, and Wowie picks up a tier 2 on the opposite side of the map to his credit, but that's not going to be enough to stop this push. We're talking 7,000 gold. We're talking a 17-minute Fire Giant. We're talking potentially what could be one of the fastest games of this FWC.
And we've had a lot of quick games. I mean, we're averaging, what, 25 minutes or so far here today?
Nice.
It's a quick, speedy day so far, and Sanguine's been making quick work of Obey Alliance. Wolfie, the Baron, is going to be looking much better yet. 0-5 for the Obey Alliance mid laner. We had serious concerns around this pick coming out of the draft, and I suppose we tried to find some cohesion with the rest of Sanguine, but Myth, it has just not been there.
Yeah, Wowie didn't want to be a part of the fight, so the fight came to him. Sanguine, think about diving the Phoenix, but think better of it. Inbound, taking a play out of Wowie's book, looking to push through the Phoenix. He's split pushing behind the tower. Nice little proxy for him as Ducky knocks on the door of a tier 2, but they got to get there in time to defend this Phoenix, Dave, and I'm not sure it's going to be easier said than done.
Yeah, somebody's got to get back and help things out here. 5 members of Sanguine still alive. 5 members of Sanguine still have the Fire Giant buff. Yarkor will drop down his ultimate here. Obey Alliance have to stay alive. We are 18 minutes in, and Sanguine are knocking on the door of the end. Instead, it's just the left side Phoenix. That's all Sanguine have eyes for here. Big healing, big cleanse from Shinto will usher Sanguine away. And then, of course, Rongyu hits, this time a defensive wall. Sanguine got what they came for.
We saw I could see the gears working in Sanguine's head there. The second the Ankh came down, they're like, all right, we're done. I mean, we already got the bird.
Right.
Do whatever you want to do. Drop the wall, disengage, and now Obey have one of their best tools for dealing with the healing of Sanguine removed from them. Pyromancer on the menu. Further Phoenixes if they so choose. Sanguine, this lead, I don't think I've seen anything like it before.
I've got to feel bad for Sino and Wolfie here. They're both level 14. Inbound is also level 14. Rongyu is also level 14, if that gives you some sort of indicator of the way that this game has been going. 2-level lead for Yarkor out of solo. 1-level lead for Netrioid over there out of the Hunter role. 1 tower left standing on the right-hand side of the map, Mifflin, and I hesitate to ask what this Obey defense looks like because we kind of got a glimpse at it just now, but Yarkor jumps in and Obey Alliance immediately have to leave.
Look, if I like to wax poetic occasionally, Dave. If I had to create a simile, they are like wet paper. If Sanguine is a katana, a Nippon steel, 1,000-folded blade, Obey's defense is wet paper. I mean, that's just it. Recycled paper at that.
Of course.
Because they are going to cut through them so quickly.
We're responsible here, recycled paper. Yeah, I guess recycled paper maybe would have been easier to cut through there. Sanguine going to try to cut through Ducky. Inbound rejoins the fight with his ultimate here, and Yarkor finds his way in the middle of 4 members of Obey Alliance, but Obey are doing a lot of damage here. Wolfie finally on the board. This Baron has picked up its first kill of the game, immediately turned around. 1-for-1 now for Sanguine. Small glimpse of life for Obey.
40 seconds left on the Fire Giant buff. Obey have done a lot here for the defense, better than I thought they could have, and they're still healthy. Sanguine might just have to back away. Rongyu healing up slowly, but this Fire Giant buff is going to fall off very soon. Wet paper? Paper cut, Dave. I mean, that was pretty good.
Paper cut. I guess that could happen with wet paper from time to time. Fire Giant buff only 20 seconds away. And Sanguine are not feeling confident enough to re-push here on that one, so it's time to go back, regroup around the FG, and then the Fury got 30 seconds offset from that FG. So if Sanguine play this one properly, you could be looking at both objectives. That was an important one. I mean, this is very intangible for Wolfie, but just finally getting a kill on the board, I think. Phoenix defense, albeit maybe a mood shift for this Obey team.
And I'm sure it's one that they could do with, absolutely. But now they're in a hard position. They were taking fights inside their Phoenix, inside their own base. With Fire Giant respawning in 40 seconds, Obey has to think, do we want to step up and defend? We were able to repulse at least 1 push from Sanguine. Can we do it again? 10,000 down and Fire Giant on 5? That's a decision only Obey can make. If I had to call it, I think they wait inside their own base.
Yeah, we're going to get to see what that response looks like here. I mean, Inbound solo looked at FG in the last game, and that's when Sanguine, I'll use your word, Mifflin, this time. A little disrespect on keeping Inbound at bay there in game 2. So maybe Obey, but then you think back to the earlier Fire Giant where, Ducky went in, died. Sino blinks in alone, dies. I mean, everyone from Obey Alliance kind of went in one after another, but this is a very different game we're looking at a few minutes later. Obey Alliance, a good enough team to know that's not the way to play around this FG. They were staggered out. You've got to group up here if you're going to contest. And the time is now for them to respond, and they are all over the map. It looks like this one's going Sanguine's way.
Ducky hovering around. If he gets caught out by a wall, he's going to lose his life. Rongyu looking for it. Ducky has to play incredibly safe here, but take a peek at Obey. They're pushing up that wave as hard as they can to keep those fire minions away.
Phoenix respawns in Obey's base. Fire Giant taken down by Sanguine. No contest from Obey. Instead, it's the macro game that Obey are looking to play, and it's Inbound who's pushing in that wave. So Sanguine are going to have to go back, and it's the Gold Fury now taken by Obey, and still 22 minutes in. Very impactful, though. You look at the Sanguine side of the items, and you're looking at full item slots for everyone. A couple members of Obey Alliance, if not everyone, still looking to finalize some of those builds. So maybe you're not thrilled with the Gold Fury here at this point, 23 minutes in, but it will go some distance here for Obey.
So Obey's last defense, Dave, works because we see a natural disaster tier ultimate from the Baron Samdi. He pulls 3 people into his Phoenix and finds the stun. That might be best case scenario for them.
Him, right?
That's why you picked them, I suppose, but that's not easy to perform on, especially considering this time around on the push, Sanguine, Fire Giant on 5 members. They're going to know exactly where they want to go, and it's likely going to be around this already weakened left side Phoenix. and Sanguine have all their relics available to them this time around. You gotta be very careful on this Baron Samdi. Once he goes into the ultimate, that's a huge target for Rongyu to hit with Sunder.
At 4 beads and a cleanse, doesn't feel all that great to play against from Obey Alliance right now. Inbound will use his ultimate, could be an engagement here on the left-hand side. A nice wall from Rongyu. And the left side, Phoenix gets taken down once more. Rongyu has been consistent on this pick, to say the least. And now Sanguine, all 5 members with the FG buff can look towards mid.
That was one of the smartest walls I've ever seen. He throws that up, and now Obey has no way to deal with that push. They have to walk all the way around their own Phoenix, already weakened. They didn't have the time for it. Rongyu, the eyes to be able to identify that situation. I've never seen anything like it.
Man is playing out of his mind here. Sanguine are as well. 1 death on the board for 3 members of Sanguine, and that's it. A couple of them haven't died. Shinto, Netrioid, the 2 that you want to live the entire game, have been doing so up to this point. Now it's just buying a little bit of time. Back to base goes Panatom. Sanguine there as well. Remember, it was on this right-hand side where Obey Alliance were able to find a big fight and keep things at bay. But Myth, that seems like a lightning striking twice kind of moment there. Gonna be difficult for Obey to find a similar defense.
What it should be slightly easier this time around. Obey has been able to accumulate at least a little bit of gold, and you only hit level 20 once on the side of Sanguine, so now Obey is playing with borrowed time. They're able to slowly catch up, but slow might be the premier word here. Where are you guys at?
We've lost half of our HP. A couple of Obey were over at the purple buff. Sino, he's found the engage, but it's on to Rongyu, who's down at half HP. Life of the party pulls in 1. Wolfie gets the first kill, but Netrioid now has the second. Down goes Ducky. Here comes Sanguine storming back into the Obey Alliance base. Shinto rampaging through the game. You can feel the life force draining from Obey Alliance. Sanguine, they've got a little bit more gas in the tank. Phantom will clean up Wolfie. The up-down is slowed down by Inbound, who's able to find 1, but Sanguine still strong. Sanguine have the health bar. Sanguine have the win, and Sanguine are moving on.
Look, Dave, now is a perfect opportunity for me to explain the difference between a villain and a clown. Shinto claimed in an interview that he thinks Obey does not belong in this league, and Sanguine put up a shut-up today. If you lose, you're a clown. If you win, you're a villain. Sanguine looks strong here.
I'd argue to some people a clown and a villain are the same thing. Some people really hate him, Myth. I don't know, but Sanguine, they're absolutely looking like, what'd you say, the villains? I was trying to follow that meta.
Yeah,
they're looking like the villains now. Who would have guessed? Sanguine, people love these guys, but
they're nice guys.
Over to Obey. I guess they're the villains, and here in Game 3, they did not leave that up to much imagination. The lead was early, the lead was often, and this one got out of control.
They controlled the match from minute 0. It almost seemed like Sanguine let Obey have the lead in Game 1s and 2s just so they could take it away from him. Game 3, they were done. They wanted to win from minute 0. What was it, a 15-minute Fire Giant that Sanguine were able to confirm for themselves? A commanding win for Sanguine. I'm not happy to play against them almost ever. These guys are looking strong.
Agreed. An unfortunate end to the year for Obey Alliance. They showed some life in Games 1 and 2, but Sanguine just too consistent. Game 3 comes to a close, and Myth and I will do the same. We'll see you right back after this break. What's up, everybody? Dolson here, reminding you guys that on Thursday, during the hi-rez showcase, we'll be showing you guys the winners of the yearly cosplay contest that we always do. We've got 2 categories this year, the Journeyman and then the Masters tier. So make sure to vote in the poll now for your favorite out of each of those categories. But let's jump in. Let's take a look at one of your finalists.
Welcome back to the hi-rez Production Studios, everybody. Sanguine are moving on to play the Renegades, and they made sure that we knew exactly who the better team was here today. Gore, they absolutely dominated Obey Alliance, and a lot of us got a chance to watch it from the comfort of our own homes. SWC at home is the hashtag to use on Twitter if you want to show us how you watched this one. Sherix, one of the SMITE game mods, making sure that everyone, look at that chat on the right. You cannot get anything past this man. Good luck. Don't start spamming, or Sherix is coming for you. I can tell you that with the vertical monitor locked in and ready to go. And then Wraithen, Littleman, and Freya. Love to see Wraithen, new dad, a huge part of the SMITE community. Congratulations, buddy. But I know a big Obey Alliance fan, certainly a little bit disappointed with how that set went for his favorite team, but at least he was doing it in comfort, Gore.
Yeah, you know, that nice little baby right next to you. He's got to feel like you can't, like, you can be upset about it, and then you turn and you look, and all right, well, that's a cute little baby. I can't be mad about this. It's
what are you gonna do?
All you need right there.
Yell at Bobby while your child's sleeping next to you?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
No, you got to let it nap while it can. That's the only time that you have to rest.
You just got an Arthur meme at your desk, and that's all you can afford to do, I suppose, in that sort of situation. Gore, I mean, the storyline months from now, weeks from now, it'll be that Obey got stomped here today, and to some degree that is true. But as we look at the set as a whole, Game 1, I think, should have been an Obey victory. Game 2, they had it in their grasp and let slip through their fingers. Game 3 was never close, but it was okay from Obey.
Yeah, I think Game 3, the best way I can showcase it, and if it'll catch it, I wrote Shinto First Blood on my notes, and I stopped writing from that point forward, because there wasn't really a whole lot to catalog for this game that was, oh man, this was the great turnaround moment for Sanguine just won. They just played better the entire game. And it's unfortunate that that's the last game for Obey here, because I think the other 2 games, like you said, were a much better showing from them. Maybe it didn't quite clinch what they wanted, but it showcased that they can still be competitive with teams like Sanguine. That last game, I think if you're someone like Shinto and you say in an interview that's recorded and put up online that you think the team that you're going to fight first round doesn't belong in the league, you have to have a Game 3 like that, or else you look awful, right, for the rest of history. If you lose to him, it's better for us. I love that kind of storyline, but not so good for him. And so this is the kind of thing, if you're going to say that, you have to mean it. And I think that's exactly what we got out of that. Sanguine, it's not meant to be a toxic jab. It's what they think about you and how they're going to play, and I think that's what we got to see this game.
Unbelievable performance from Sanguine. Wolfie really struggled. I mean, all of Obey struggled in this one. It's not fair to call out one particular player, I don't think. Wolfie in the early game certainly struggled. We saw that great highlight of Rongu playing around that ultimate from Baron. You look at the player damage numbers, I mean, every single member of Sanguine is higher than their counterpart. Really higher than anybody at 20,000 healing from Shinto is near illegal.
Shinto nullified Sino and Wolfie. Like, just 2 people on Obey didn't exist because of that amount of healing.
That's good, I think. If I had to make an educated guess on whether or not that's good, I think it might be. I think I'd take that on my team as Sanguine secure their spot and moving on here in the SMITE World Championships. Obey Alliance's season now comes to an end, Gormizer. I think we saw a lot of bright moments for these 5 players, but certainly not going to be happy with where they ended up. As today, we had 2 3-0s in the placements around Renegades, 3-0 belt slap, and Sanguine now taking care of Obey.
I'll admit, kind of surprising to see it that way. I think Renegades started off strong, a game very similar to that last one where they just kind of made a statement. But Belt Slap really did give them, not a lot of trouble, but you could see there were moments where if Renegades didn't, tighten up, things would fall apart for them. Sanguine, it was kind of the reverse, where it was like, cool, we had to start tight, and then they got loose by the end of it because it didn't matter in Game 3. And it does go back to, like, I mean, we were saying it on the desk, like, you've got all of this setup and such great potential to set things up, but nothing to do afterward. Like, you could get everybody into the position you want them to, and no one to actually kill them. And unfortunately, I think that's where they just fell apart. What was it, like 13-3 at one point? It ended up extending further beyond that for Sanguine.
An impressive victory for Sanguine here today at the end of the day, and I think that's what we should be focusing on. Sanguine move on in our final set here of this Tuesday of the SMITE World Championship. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. The post-game show is coming up. We're going to break down what you've seen all day today and get you set up for tomorrow, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here for the SMITE World Championship.
Starting to break, I'm starting to break, I'm starting to break down. Watch all of my bones fall to the ground. You could be the one that I'm all about, but I'm starting to break, I'm starting to break down, break down, could be the one that replaying your words there in my head. When you're not here, I'm stuck in bed. I'm starting to break, I'm starting to break, I'm starting to break down. Watch all of the bullets fall to the ground. You took a shot and I'm yours now. But I'm starting to break, I'm starting to break down, break down, break down, break down. Could be the one that
The Kraken is going to stop Bumps from being back in time. Trying to deal with the Naja, but he's just ultra focused on the Titan now. Half health low. Our 2 members now from Bloodline. This could be in Cosmos. What? Might be able to help his team turn it around. WBD, hold the Titan.
Welcome back, everybody, to the hi-rez production studios here to close out what was a fantastic opening day for the SMITE World Championship. And hopefully you're enjoying it in the company of other SMITE fans, as SWC is meant to be enjoyed. Now, obviously, we can't do it in an arena as we would hope to do, but we do have our official Discord so that you can find other people and watch with them. Watch parties, pro meet and greets, dev meet and greets, I think. I don't know. Hopefully I didn't just make that up. It's all there in the Pro Discord, so make sure you check that out and join up for the rest of the week because we still have a lot of excellent SMITE to go here at the SMITE World Championships Season 7. Ryan Agro Bailey joined by Gormizer and Dolson here on the desk to break it down. And fellas, today was exactly what I was hoping it would be. It was interesting. There were back and forth games. I was hoping for maybe a 3-1 or a 3-2 in there, a couple sweeps. But overall, Dave, I mean, what more could you ask for?
Oh, nothing more to start off this week here. I mean, there's so many close contested games going on. I would argue the best outcomes of the early games as far as setting up for tomorrow, I mean, no disrespect to either Belt Slap or Obey. The way Wrong You played today and the way Awesome Jake played today, look at that bracket right there. They're going to be playing the next time we see those two teams in action. So nothing I could ask for anything more today.
It's going to be so much fun. I mean, Gord had it all. We had early game, we had late game throws, we had Fire Giant steals, we had it all.
We got pretty much everything you would want out of at least individual SMITE games that come through. ROM snipes that were able to find kills. Like, I mean, if you had a bingo card for those moments specifically, I know there were a lot of people tweeting them out that they had theirs. You probably got a good amount just today to be able to check off.
And that was including Sanguine's big victory over Obey Alliance because, boy, did they look good. That was the last set that we saw. And, in fact, we have to get to an interview with one of those members. Yarkor standing by after a big victory over Obey, punching their ticket to move on against the Renegades. Yarkor, congratulations on the big victory.
Thank you.
I mean, that must have been a blast to play in. You guys looked good from game 1 all the way through to game 3. Did you feel like it was going to go this way for you here today?
I think it was to be like a lot easier, to be honest. I think we struggled a lot. I think we should like be more clean on what we really wanted to do. But yeah, I mean, it's still a 3-0, even though I think we could have played better. But yeah, just happy of the outcome.
A true professional, always finding things to critique, even in a 3-0 victory. But you're right to do so, I think, because game 1, remember, Obey was in control. Run me through what the energy was in that Sanguine room where you guys play whether Netrioid or Shinto, whoever stole away that Fire Giant, got the FG away.
Yeah, I was watching Shinto come, and I know that it's going to be his steal, like, no matter what they do. He stole it with the Persephone 2, I think, by the way. So he threw his 1, then his 2, and he got it. And then he was out, and we won because of that. I mean, yeah, we won because of that.
Just too easy for the boy Shinto.
Yeah,
you know he's going to be getting that steal.
Yeah.
What about game 2, Yarkor? Because you guys waiting, typical play, you're waiting for your team members to respawn on Fire Giant. But normally, when someone shows up, you confirm the Fire Giant. You don't wall him off and ult him off and just disrespect the man like that before you secure the Fire Giant. Were you worried at all that Inbound was going to steal that game 2 FG?
Nah, we were confident about the call. We always are. And so one day that we wanted to hold the FG, and Ron Yu is the best player in the world, so there is nothing that you can do about it. He survived either way. He immune everything. You put up 2 beautiful walls, and everyone has engaged Fire Giant, and we were out. Just like that.
And we're out. You're right. His ultimate in the back end to not get plucked was really well timed. That sets you up against the Renegades in a few days. What did you see from them, and how do you think that you're going to match up against them?
I think last time we played against them, I think we shouldn't have lost. So this time we are going to win. That is what is going to happen. So it's going to be a 3-0, maybe a 3-1 if I'm trolling. So we will see what is going to happen.
There you have it. Some immortal words there from Yarkor. 3-0 or maybe 3-1 if I'm trolling. Congratulations on the victory, man. Can't wait to watch you in just a couple days. Indeed, to Yarkor. Love talking to the Sanguine guys. And you
Call
know
them villains, dude.
He doesn't
call them villains. What?
He doesn't. He's like, were you concerned at all game 2 about that fire giant? No.
No. Not at all. No, it's easy. No problem at all.
Is 3-0, 3-1 if I'm trolling, the most uttered phrase for Smite pros? Because it seems to be the one that I feel like I hear the most.
All the time.
We're going up against Renegades, Barracuda. It's either we're winning or we're trolling, and I guess that's the same mindset for Sanguine.
The only two options, the immortal words of Polar Bear Mike, and I guess if you're going to choose some words for Mike, there are worse ones to choose. So
absolutely.
Some of his phrases, I have no idea what he's saying. That's a pretty decent one at the very least. Let's talk about that Sanguine victory here, fellas, because I think the Yarkor is right to not be totally happy with how it went. Not that because Obey had a chance in some of the games. You have to expect that an SPL team's going to do that to you. But Sanguine did have some moments where they looked a little bit off, Gore.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for them, right? Game 1, you had mentioned it. It looks like one that Obey could have won if things go well for them. And that's the big issue, right? If you are in a position as Sanguine in a game where we had Game 3 exist, or a set where Game 3 exists, your Game 1 shouldn't be that close. And I think that's what they're looking at as time goes forward. Get your picks and bans ready for the Renegades, right? Obey got a couple of comfort picks very early on. We saw that Raw come through for Wolfie. I think if they spend the next couple of days presumably grinding Smite the way they always do. I saw the Smite client still open on the post-game lobby behind Yarkor there. I would not be surprised if they're still playing tonight, if they're playing all day tomorrow and watching some VODs for the Renegades specifically, just to make sure they clean that up.
Look, we're being a little bit critical here just because Yarkor was, but Dave, I mean, especially Game 3.
Yeah.
It was clinical for Sanguine.
Oh, yeah, that one was not really ever in question in the same way Game 1 and maybe Game 2 were a little bit in question. I even said, Obey dealt themselves pocket aces in Game 2. They had Wolfie off to a meteoric start. He had 3 kills in the duo lane 5, 6, 7 minutes into that game. So I think shows resilience, though, and the one thing that we had said about Sanguine is that the late-game team fight maybe had started to slow down, or maybe it was that other teams had started to catch up to that same potential. Obviously, you have to take this set with a grain of salt. I think we've now seen that in 3 different types of games, Sanguine can work on that late game, claw their way back in, and still fight with the best.
Still have that in them for sure, and they're going to have to show that up against the Renegades team that you heard Yarkor say it right there, that this is a team that they want revenge against. Phase 2 playoffs went Renegades' way 3-1. That's why the Renegades didn't have to play up against a team like Obey Alliance. They got the opportunity to play against an SEC team in Belt Slap. But Renegades today, in their own matchup, looked awfully good here, Dave. I mean, they took Belt Slap to task 21 minutes in Game 3. Game 1 was somehow even more lopsided than that. This Renegades team looked locked in.
And I'm kind of echoing the point I made earlier where I'm now very excited for this duo lane matchup. I cannot wait to see Rongyu and Awesome Jake go up against one another. We saw Jake play aggressive. The tier support worked for him here today. Rongyu played Ymir 3 games in a row, remember, so I imagine that to play some sort of role in picks and bans. But no, looking back at this Renegade set up against Belt Slap, I don't know ever how much in question this one was. I mean, this is an SPL team. Obviously, we've talked about Belt Slap playing over in EU. But the ability as well. I talked a little bit about how Sanguine came back from different types of deficits. I think Renegades showed that they are able to come back from those types of deficits as well.
Yeah.
I imagine this one is close yet again up against Sanguine.
Gore, what are your thoughts on Renegades' victory today and how it bodes for them the rest of the league?
I think it's insane that we ended up with 2 sets today that ended up being the same story where, one team had the early game lead and just couldn't maintain it. Belt Slap did very similar to Obey early on. Johnny's having some really great games and holding on to it. But I think it's most important that Renegades not only fight back in those moments, one game where they have an insane early lead and they win it, and then one game where they're at a major deficit and they win it, but that each time they got to go through that, they're playing through Jake, they're playing through variety. Like, they're not just playing through the typical, okay, yeah, well, Venenu got a couple of hot kills and made the difference. It's like, no, our front line got out there, they didn't fall too far behind, and they were able to make the plays that we needed them to, and because of that, we got to move forward. We have seen this year, I think, more supports and junglers and solo laners be the crux of the game, and if you're going to go against Ghost, And then wrong you, Jake, they gotta be on point because PBM will not give them any slack.
You're right. That's a good point for sure. They're on that end of the bracket. Let's take a look at what you're going to see the rest of the week as we get ready to close out here on Tuesday. As you mentioned, Ghost is awaiting them, and that will be a little bit later on towards Saturday that we won't see Ghost or Radiance. They've got a lot of Smite to watch because tomorrow we've got Mind the Gap up against SSG and E United versus PK. Don't forget to tune in early, though. Loki Dad riding along on our tailgate starting at 8 a.m. And then, of course, we'll still have the Joust quarterfinals of the Community Cup. Also, for all of you ready for the next map and all the different spoils about Season 8, Pon's been tweeting some fire balance memes for the record. You're going to get even more of that good stuff on Thursday, January 7th, the hi-rez showcase. Not only going to be a lot of info about hi-rez and Smite Season 8, but Paladins information there. Got a lot of good stuff for Rogue Company as well. Going to be a ton of fun. Make sure you're tuning in for that hi-rez showcase. As we dive a little bit deeper into tomorrow's schedule here, fellas, I think that the big thing, obviously, for me is going to be this matchup at the very end, man. I mean, this E United PK setup is just going to be unbelievable.
And I'm not sure which way I lean on it, if I'm being totally honest with you. Two teams depends on the day. I think, in my opinion, between the Knights and E United, depends on the day, depends what team between the two of them shows up. And I think that makes for a very interesting set. And there are two teams that can fluctuate mid-set as well. You could get PK shot out of a cannon in Game 1, and then E United comes roaring back in Game 2. Going to be fun to watch.
I think that's just two teams. E United, I want to see what they've been doing. I feel like they're the kind of team. Obey, I was hoping for this, but we didn't get to see it. That has been the last 2 months just grinding. They come out of Phase 2 and they're like, well, we're not going to play in the playoffs. We're not even going to be playing until January. Let's just do what we can. And the changes they made are going to make them. The only thing I'm more excited for is that tomorrow's Katie's birthday. So that takes a little bit of a precedent to me.
Gore,
but
what am I supposed to do up here, man?
PK.
I'm trying to do my job, make people like
wish
me.
her a happy early birthday.
You have an incredible cast to start off the day, and then you come up here and you're a better husband than anybody. How are we supposed to compete with this, Dave? Yeah.
We can't.
We can't.
Cards are gone. I'm going to...
Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it.
I would be
Happy
very good
early
at throwing
birthday to Gore's wonderful wife, Katie. I'm sure that she's going to get some great Smite games as a birthday present here for her on this SWC week. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I know that SWC this year feels a little bit different. No crowd like normal, and I know I was tweeting about worrying about that, but my favorite comment that I got on Twitter was that the crowd was still going to be there. They were just going to be a little bit further away, and I think I really felt that here today. So thank you guys, everyone, for watching at home. Make sure you're still using that SWC at home hashtag as we get ready tomorrow, and we'll see you bright and early. 8 a.m. is the tailgate start time, 11 a.m. for our broadcast. From all of us here at the hi-rez Production Studios, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for SWC.
The Kraken is going to stop Thumps from being back in time. Barracuda comes in, Vintage finds the first blood.
Right now, the snipes are going to be good. You get a return kill.
Don't gonna last for makes the ultimate up, but Zeros flattens him. Julio has the peel, but you can't stop Variety with the double kill. Barracuda puts down Johnny and Thor. I think this one might just be over. Julio falls as well. It's a triple for the solo later. Venenu crushes him with the Ana Monster in the back. Johnny is low as well. Lasper blinks in, can't find anything with the Cobra's Kiss, but Venenu is swinging. We knew it'd be coming.
Oh, Inbound taking Lala. Look at the wall from Wrong You. First blood on over to Sanguine. Wolfie with the snipe though. Down goes Netrioid. Sanguine, they steal this one away. Wolfie first blood, down goes Wrong You. Oh, big stun though from Sanguine, but Wolfie is rotating. Inbound finds the block, a triple kill for Wolfie. Inbound rejoins the fray and picks up a kill for himself.
I almost forgot. Peach it.